Hi, Liz. Hi, Ebenezer.
All right, we are live.
Oh, we are. Okay.
Hi, Tanya.
I know that a couple of my committee members are going to be late, so I'm just going to give folks a couple minutes to arrive before calling us to order. Okay, we don't have a quorum yet, but it's 6:33. I'd like to be respectful of people's time. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know we've got a couple of people who are going to be arriving late by 7 o'clock. But we certainly have plenty of people on the Zoom and we can get started. And this is also why we have minutes. So it's 6:33. hold on just a moment. I will be right back. I apologize. That was another one of my board colleagues and I thought it related to this meeting, but it did not. So I will call them back later. So it's 6:34. We're calling this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for taking time out of your day to battle traffic. Oh, wait, no traffic. We're on Zoom. To come to this meeting. If there are people, yeah, we got lots of folks in the attendees. And as I said, we should have a quorum of our members soon, but I would like to get going. By way of announcements, in April, or at our last meeting, we had a resolution regarding the Bennett Park Central Lawn Project. I'm pleased to report that that passed the full board unanimously. We had a substantial conversation last month around the open culture program with lots of questions. And I was able to I received from Natalie Espino at the Borough President's Office, who among other things is the Cultural Affairs Coordinator for the Borough President, an incredibly helpful document that really unpacked sort of, this is what this program is, this is what this program isn't. Here are some of the things that are covered by it. It was very helpful. I will circulate that to the committee members who had questions about that, to any of the board members who had questions about that as well. But essentially, the open culture program is not so much a culture program as a permitting program for cultural events in public streets. And the thing that makes it different from other street activities permits is the main thing that makes it different is that these don't have to be ticketed events, but they can be ticketed events. Whereas street activities permits are only for things that are free. Many of the same prohibitions between regular SAPO permits and open culture permits are the same. You know, if there's going to be amplified sound, then that has to get a sound permit from the police precinct. It can't go past a certain hour. It can't be more than 12 hours. It can't be overnight. If it's a multi-day permit, everything has to be packed up and removed and reinstalled, you know, the next day or the next time. So it's not really a cultural program done with DCLA, the Department of Cultural Affairs. It's just a different category of street permit. So I will circulate that document so that the folks who had raised those many questions can have them answered. And with that, I'd like to move on. I do want to note that we've had a couple of complaints from, there was somebody who came to the general meeting who lives in 72730 Fort Washington Avenue and had some concerns about late night loud basketball playing in Javits Playground. You know, this is a perennial issue in any and frankly all of the city's playgrounds where there is basketball. People like to play basketball, and sometimes they do it when the playground is closed, and it can get a little loud, and that's a problem for folks who live nearby. I do believe that the Parks Department, there was a little bit of tension between understanding who's responsible, who can write summonses or who can chase people from the park. Is it only Parks Enforcement or is it also the NYPD? The answer, of course, is it's also the NYPD. And because this playground is lockable with a gate, that does make that enforcement easier. I know that the Parks Department has not always had a consistent lockup crew that's able to get to every place at exactly the closing time, but with the addition of seasonal staff, we should see an improvement with the timely closing of playgrounds. You could just nod your head yes or shake your head no if I got, okay, great, glad I got that right. And Tanya is going to touch on this and other issues in her report. The police department, the precincts are not always able to get to obviously every noise complaint, which is a huge issue. But if they are in the area, they absolutely can summons people for being in a park when it is closed, because that's just, you know, their job is to enforce the law. And that's part of the law. So it can be parks enforcement, but it can also be the NYPD. The last update item that I have is we've also had there's been a lot of activity on Facebook that you may have seen about an ice cream truck in and around Margaret Corbin Circle, related issues to both noise and of the jingle and of the motor and fumes from the motor. There are a lot of people who, you know, I think we can agree everybody loves ice cream. Everybody loves Mr. Softy. It's summer in New York. Kind of hard to hate on that. But there are, you know, issues related to noise and the diesel fumes that brings. So important to know is that this particular truck does not actually have and never did have from the Parks Department a concession license permit from the Parks Department for that location. They're a concessionaire licensee for another park in the Bronx. No complaints there. And I guess they want to like expand their business. I totally get that. But, you know, there's a process for that. There's a competitive bid process for that. And right now there is another vendor who operates a hot dog cart at Margaret Corbin Circle. So I think that this is an area that needs to, you know, continues to need a little bit of discussion to get some clarity around what is or what is not happening. But nobody is trying to stick it to Mr. Softy. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. I think that as with many things on Facebook and in social media, you always have to take with a grain of salt what somebody is saying and understand that there may be more to the story. There may be, which is not to say that people are lying. I don't want to impugn anybody's integrity, but I think everybody tells their story from their perspective, and we don't always get the other pieces that might help make the whole thing make sense. So as I get more information, I will obviously share it with all of you. And with that, I see Tanya, you got a quick question about that.
Yeah, actually, just two quick things. One, you were talking about the open culture. There was a complaint about the United Palace Theater area because there's a festival going on, and someone was saying that they're playing really loud music on Sundays even, and this went on until you know, all day, and they, you know, had to leave their apartment. They couldn't conduct business. I guess if they work from home, do some things. And so I don't know if that, you know, I'm just bringing that up
Totally not,
because
100% not this committee. So
okay.
the open culture program, it's a permitting program, and the United Palace's street and that area isn't part of the open culture program. I don't know what their festival was. It never came through this committee, wasn't permitted by this committee. I mean, what you're describing sounds essentially like a noise complaint. And you know, I don't dismiss the importance of that, but it's not this committee. It's going to be the district manager. It's going to be 311. It's going to be whoever wrote that permit. And it's probably appropriate, if it's the United Palace's event, to reach out to United Palace. So the person with the noise issue should reach out to the United Palace. I'm happy to give you that contact information if that's helpful.
Yeah,
but it doesn't need to come through this committee.
Got it. I'm clear on that now. The last thing, I just wanted to to, I'm sorry, I think I just lost my thought. Oh my God.
You know what? It happens to us all,
I,
and I don't know about you, but with me, it happens with greater frequency. So shoot me a note when it comes back to you. No shame in that. I do want to
Oh
let,
yes, I know what it was. The
yes,
street vendor project. You were talking about these vendors who don't have proper license. My suggestion too is maybe there could be some engagement with the street vendor project to help them to, figure out, that because they work with these people to to
yes,
get them properly permitted to be able to operate and do the things they
yes.
need to do. Just
And
that was
I
just a
want to,
suggestion.
yes,
That's
and
all.
I want to be
And I'm done.
mindful that that's essentially a, business development
It
thing. And I did
is.
actually
It
have a
is.
conversation, had actually two conversations today with Francisco, who raised this Mr. Softy issue in the context of business development. So
Right.
at the risk of sort of skirting into a little bit of a tangent, I just want everybody to know that one of the joys of being a community board member and being a community board chair is we do spend a lot of time talking with our colleagues who are on or who chair other committees where there's an issue that maybe has a little bit of something to do with this one, but is really more somebody else's. And we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that we're staying in our own lane, but that we're also flagging for our colleagues in other committees what are issues that came up here that may actually have more to do with their work.
I'm
Got
also
it.
on the
Thank
business
you.
development committee, Tanya.
Oh, I remember.
So I do want to just remind people that we have, as always, a packed agenda, and I try very hard to get us out of here as close to 8:30 as possible, because I really think something bad happens to all of our brains when we're on any single Zoom for more than 2 hours. So if I'm kind of moving things along at a clip, it's for our collective good, and I'm gonna ask for your forbearance in allowing me to do that. So before I move to the next agenda item, I did want to just give a little bit of time to Miguel Guadalupe from BRC. So this is another example of that delicate balance of trying to stay in our lane as the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee and not step on the toes of what is essentially a housing and human services project and program and event. And yet, as I think we all know from discussion at various points in, we've got two NYMAs. We got Naima dialed in, and we got Naima dialed in a second time. Hello, Naima.
Hi, just having difficulties right now. Sorry about that.
Got it. I totally get it. Technology is great, and sometimes it is not our friend. So I got you. So of course, BRC is a supportive housing program for undomiciled men, and they were going to be building a facility up in Inwood, realized that the land that they were going to be developing was formerly an African-American burial ground and a Native American ceremonial pit, and took measures to identify what would be the best way to figure out what's going on with that land. Is it proper to develop it? And how to go forward. So understanding that we are not going to be talking at all about the BRC housing project, I did want to invite Miguel to just give us a little bit of information about the really incredibly moving event that they facilitated on Sunday by way of allowing the ancestors to be on that land to see what is there so as to figure out how best to go forward. Miguel, are you?
Liz descendants.
I thought we had Miguel on. Oh, Miguel needs to be, can somebody, Ebenezer, can you promote Miguel? Guadalupe to a presenter? He was just on the attendee side.
I don't see Guadalupe, say Plaza. Is the same person?
It says Miguel Guadalupe BRC.
Okay, let me look for him.
He's in the attendee side. Excellent. Whoop. He was just here. There we go. Yeah, there's that weird Harry Potter feeling when you get from being an attendee to being a presenter. And now here you are.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, everybody. Do you want me to just kind of jump in and give context and just talk a little bit about what happened, or?
Well, I did.
Sure,
I don't
take it
know if
first.
you heard before, but I did give a little bit of context about the development, and I just wanted you to talk a little bit about, sort of the event that you put together on May 2nd, and what, if anything, you can report on that they have found. It may be premature for that.
Sure. So again, thanks for having me, everybody. My name is Miguel Guadalupe. I am the Director of Donor and Community Engagement here at BRC. I'm actually working with quite a few groups in CB12. So Ebenezer and I know each other well. Ebenezer, I still have your hat in my car, so let me know when you want to pick it up. To give a little bit of context in terms of, again, who we are, BRC is celebrating its 50th year in the city. We started in 1971 out of the Bowery. So BRC actually stands for Bowery Residents Committee. And it started with a group of individuals, men who were, in essence, the discarded of that time, who banded together in solidarity with one another in order to both keep each other stable and moving forward in their sobriety and in their stability, right? So that's the BRC's founding. So skip 50 years, and we are all over the city. We have 30 programs that range throughout the gamut in terms of helping people achieve stability, sobriety. We do outreach to those suffering from homelessness in the subways, as well as in certain locations throughout the city. We have safe haven shelters, chemical dependency units, workforce training programs, supportive housing, permanent housing, temporary housing, etc. We are constantly innovating. And so one of the things that we have done in the last few years is we've actually created a new model of housing where, rather than just simply inhabit a box, right? So many nonprofits similar to BRC, what they do is they rent a building from some developer, and then they try to run a program out of it. It's done. It's capable of doing it. We have those same types of facilities, but the revenue or the money that they are contracted to run that shelter, to run that program, most of that money ends up going in rents to the developer, right? And then they're forced to sort of make do with what's left after that. So what BRC started to think about was what happens if we become the owners of record, owners of the land, owners of the building, owners of can architect these buildings ourselves with in terms of what we call purposeful design, so that we actually create a building that's for a shelter and for the clients. And then sometimes what we're able to do is we're actually to do a dual purpose building, which is what we did across the river from you guys in Landing Road in the Bronx, right behind, I believe it's Dallas BBQ. When I grew up, it was Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. So that I don't know if you guys remember that. So right off the Deegan, if you look at that brown and orange building that popped up in the last 5 years, that's our building.
I'm just going to jump in. I'm just going to jump in a little bit. This is not the housing committee, so we actually
I understand. I'm just giving
we
context.
don't need a report on that aspect of it. I just need you to kind of get to the actual, because we've all sort of read the minutes and we're familiar with that. I'm hoping for an update on the actual land and what happened on May 2nd and who was involved in that and why that was, that's the piece that's related to this committee.
Rock and roll. So what's relevant to you is the following. When we stopped the development, what we did is we're in the middle of investigating the land. And in terms of the preliminary research, we understood that it had been used as a cemetery for enslaved Africans. And before that time, during the colonial period, and before that, it was a ceremonial site for the Lenape indigenous peoples. We understood that it was, a lot of that land had been cut 25 feet down in prior development, and that had obviously been, developed over and created. Now it's an auto bodies place, right? And so in order to move forward, and you guys already know, we stopped development. We created the advisory group in order to help us figure out whether we even wanted to pursue going forward, whether it was possible to do both. But before we could do the investigation would have meant that we would have had to create digs, like trenches, in that land. And before we even did that, we wanted to do that in a proper way. And the proper way meant basically recognizing the space and the sacredness of it being both for the Lenape peoples and for the enslaved Africans who were once buried there. So in conjunction with the people who were in the advisory group, we organized what we called an initial restoration ceremony, restoration and what we called a bearing witness ceremony. And so on Sunday, we went on site. It was open for us, and we had Inwood clergy there to come and bear witness. And then we had folks representing the ancestral peoples of the Lenape, as well as the ancestral peoples of the enslaved Africans that were buried there, to hold what is the restorative part of the ceremony. So these individuals on the Inwood side included Rabbi Guy Austrian and Tiffany Lee from the Altagracia group. And then on the ancestral side, we had a member of the Lenape Center, which is in New York. And we had some members, Chief Ayanda Clark and Nana Keose and Numo Kwesi Nkrumah. These gentlemen represented, and I think I have it right here. I just want to make sure that I represented Nigerian, Ghanaian, and Central African traditions, and they brought folks with them. So it was a really beautiful ceremony. We had some words in terms of the bearing witness side, so recognizing the history and recognizing what we were doing. That came mostly from the Inwood clergy that were present. And then in part of the restoration part, it was, calling out to the ancestors. There were libations, there were prayers, there were songs sung by Hadrian, who represented the Lenape Center. And in the end, it was very much like a gathering place for everyone. And now, so that was done without moving one, the first brick or the first piece of cement. The next day, on Monday, is when the archaeological teams started doing just sample trenching to see if there was anything of note underneath that cement. I believe they concluded just recently, and we're waiting for their report. Once we have that report, we'll make our findings public for everyone to see. But it's in keeping with our tradition of solidarity with the folks that we see here, and we work very closely with the advisory group of Liz is a part of that, as well as other members of the Inwood community, various members of the Inwood community, and we will be engaging with them and working with them going forward. That's the 5-minute tour.
Thank you. 7.
Yeah.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Do
All right.
folks have questions? We can take maybe 1 or 2 burning questions. Otherwise, I'm scanning the room, scanning the Zoom, not seeing any questions from
I guess
folks.
I just have a quick, hi, Miguel, thank you so much for your thoughtfulness. My name is Naima. My question is, so after the trenches, after that's analyzed, where does your organization stand? Do you see that a path moving forward to continue building this, or is it still something, or to start building this, sorry, or are you still in the process of deciding whether to pursue that site? Like, has it
Right.
been we're going to do this, or you're still not sure?
So I believe the intention is to see how we can do it in keeping with the mission as well as in commemorating the history of the site. Our intention is to do both or neither. So there's no way that we will build if we can't have a proper commemorative site or a proper commemorative portion of that site. You know, and so that's our intention. So basically what that means is that we've had to redesign the whole project in order to incorporate that in terms of what it will mean, in terms of how much space it's going to take, indoor, outdoor. We don't know yet. And so we're engaging the advisory group in that part of the discussion. We're going to be talking with architects and designers about the ideas of how to do that. And then, you know, we'll be updating everyone as that comes through.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is part of why they engaged the archaeologists to do what they did in the last week and a half was to find out exactly that question that you, Naima, and I think we all have, which is, you know, what's on that land. And so how they proceed is going to depend on what was found, and the archaeologists are analyzing that. So
right, we're eagerly awaiting their report. Should be shortly.
well, thank you for coming and for giving us that update.
I had a question.
Yes, Barbara, and Barbara, welcome back. It's really good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank the Parks Committee and the other members of the Community Board for keeping me in their thoughts and remembering me with the beautiful flowers that were sent when I was ill. I'm still recovering, but I am back here tonight. So thank you so much. I wanted to request the group that does a lot of the history of Inwood had published an account of what they felt had happened to the remains of the slaves that were buried there around the turn of the century.
Are you talking about Cole Thompson and his group?
Yes.
They've been very, very actively a part of this, and they're also a part of the.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
Let me finish. And they had researched that some of the remains were really desecrated. Some of the remains were reinterred. And I think as part of your project to respectfully deal with this would be to have not only the archaeologists and your group really confirm if that is really what happened. Because there were some pictures, some mounds and so forth, but I think that also, not just what's under the ground there now, but really thoroughly, again, research what supposedly happened around the turn of the century. And if possible, to find where these remains were removed to, so that would be part of the respectful recognition of that era or that event.
Right. Thank you, Barbara, for that. Yes, we're working very closely with Don Rice on this. He's also part of the advisory group. We're also working very closely with the Dyckman Center. So Meredith is actually the chair of the advisory committee. And, you know, as you know, they're also doing a lot of work, restorative work with the history of enslaved peoples in colonial New York, and you know, the Dyckman's role and the cemetery that they're in and all that kind of great stuff. So we're definitely working in tandem with them on that. You know, we only have control over the spot that we control, right? So what we hope is that the sampling that we've done will give us a good framework for which to move. And then, you know, obviously what we intend to do is any commemorative site, you know, we want to make sure that it becomes an educational space and a space that the community will be able to use, whether it's, you know, students, artists. Well, you know, we're in the process of creating that, and we're going to be creating that with the community hand in hand. So
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your questions. You are welcome to stay, but I believe none of us will be offended if you decide that you've got other things to do with your evening.
Thank you very much,
So-
everyone. Bye-bye.
You bet. So with that, next up on the agenda, Urban Park Rangers High School Interns Presentation. First of all, I have to say the award for the best hat goes to Leanna Rodriguez.
Second.
Clearly we have to up our hat game. Although Sally's photo of her butterfly attractant hat is always quite spectacular. I do enjoy that. I want to thank Naima for bringing this item to the agenda. You know what, Leanna, I'm going to let you take it away and cue up your guests. And we've got Iphigenia. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, we have Iphigene Murphy. We also
Iphigene.
have Priscilla, so it's Iffy Murphy on the list. We have Priscilla Ramchad as well, who could join, and Ashley Whited.
I'm not seeing how to unmute them.
Maybe they have to be joined as panelists. I'm not
They
sure.
this might be a different format. We used to be able to, Okay, somebody play the Jeopardy music in the background while I figure this out. Okay. Ebenezer, can you please promote Priscilla Ramchan?
Iffy Murphy, Iphigene Murphy.
Iffy was on before, but now I'm not seeing her.
Maybe she's having some technical difficulties.
Would she be calling in with a phone number that either ends with a 646 number that ends in 313 or a 917 number that ends in 137?
Just promote her.
Okay.
Oh, wait, yes, I see Iffy Murphy.
Thank you.
Iffy Murphy.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. And then also Ashley Whited.
Okay, so if
Okay.
you could promote, Ashley Whited and Iffy Murphy. So
Thank you
Iffy
so much.
Murphy is going to be the third person. She's the first person after the two phone numbers.
Okay.
And I apologize to everybody for this little bit of a delay. There are lots of things I love about Zoom. This is not one of the things.
I guess while we're waiting, I can share that the Urban Park Rangers invited me to visit their program last year, and so we took a tour of Central Park and just learning about its history, also just learning about the work that they do within parks, and also I've also participated in a few other programs uptown. So it's amazing the work that they do. And I thought it was important to make sure to connect them uptown because Urban Park Ranger Rodriguez, a lot of the work that they do, it also includes Inwood. So
Yes, we love our Urban Park Rangers, and Ashley also has an excellent hat. I'm just
Great,
having
thank you so
hat
much.
envy.
Well, we do have Priscilla and Ashley here, so I can just go ahead and give a small introduction, and maybe that'll allow Iffy to join in the meantime.
Great.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. And Ebenezer, if you can find Iffy Murphy, she's the person who's above Afua Preston and below the 917 dial-in number.
Okay. Thank you so much. I have to strategically place myself though so the hat doesn't disappear. So basically, again, my name is Leanna Rodriguez. I'm an Urban Park Ranger for the Manhattan Rangers. And specifically, I work out of Inwood Hill Park. And I'm here with my co-lead, Ashley Whited, and also two interns, a part of our teen internship program, Iphigene Murphy and Priscilla Ramchad, thank you so much for joining us today. So basically what I want to do is highlight an amazing program that is run out of Inwood Hill Park, and that is known as the Ranger Conservation Corps, RCC. And so basically what we're going to be doing is just sharing some of the information and highlights. Ranger Ashley and I's goal this year was for an opportunity for students to learn about the environment, the wildlife and history of New York City parks, to help local communities, and for students, especially high school students, which is focus on, earn community service hours, because they're required to do that for high school graduation now, which is super awesome, and learn about environmental conservation and activism. And what a better place than New York City parks. So I would actually like to go ahead and pass the mic over to our two interns who will speak on behalf and advocate for their experience so far. So I would love to hand the mic over to Priscilla if you're ready, and I would love to share, love for you to share what you've prepared.
Hi everyone, good night. I'm going to talk a little bit about, what the park rangers do. Okay, so the park rangers are kind of like the New Yorker's guide to all things relating to our natural world. They offer a wide variety of programs that kind of like, help our citizens connect with our green spaces. They're responsible for educating the public on good practices and procedures, and that can like positively impact our environment. They help with wildlife injury, they helped with injured wildlife rescues. And lastly, they use their community centers to engage with their local communities and help to create like a safe space for individuals to come and learn about nature and kind of like, learn about how they can, help protect it. And also, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my personal experience. I first joined RCC in last fall, and I was part of the Queens cohort, and now I'm part of the Manhattan cohort. And I can say in like both experiences, I've learned a lot about like ways in which I could, positively impact my community. One of the days that we like had our program, we learned about like composting and ways that we can just like positively impact our community within our day-to-day lives. And yeah, and I just say like this program is like one of the examples of like the urban park rangers and like the amazing job that they're doing, and kind of like keeping everyone aware on like what they can do and just making our living like just better. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. That was amazing. I also would like to introduce Iffy Murphy. She is going to share her additions as well and her experience.
Hi, I'm Iffy Murphy. I'm a freshman, and this is personally my first year interning at the Rangers Conservation Corps. So RCC is an internship centered around the conservation of the environment. Like high school students just like me and Priscilla, who are interested in learning about environmental issues, wildlife, history, in especially New York City parks where there's so much wildlife and history, are all encouraged to join. Personally, myself, I'm very interested in environmental activism and specifically learning about greenwashing, and I've had many, many opportunities to learn about it throughout the course of the internship. And another great part about RCC is the chance to help local communities, such as helping out cleaning local community gardens, meeting the people. And yeah, I'm really grateful for RCC.
Thank you so much, Iffy. So those are the two interns that shared today. We do have other interns watching as attendees. I wanted them to be a part of the civic engagement and the support that all of you give to our green spaces, and let them know that it's obviously a lot of gears running. So I would actually like to hand it over to Ashley, and she's going to be able to share some accomplishments that we've done.
Yeah, thank you so much, especially now that you've heard some testimonials or some personal experiences from our internship or our spring session. I kind of wanted to give you an idea of some of the quantitative accomplishments that we've had so far and a look at what's to come. So a lot of our work centering around impacting the community around you or the parks around you and environmental conservation. So in the short time that we've been working, we had one day where we focused on collecting microplastics or micro garbage from the peninsula in Woodhill Park. And in just an hour and a half, our interns collected 13.4 pounds of trash. And again, these micro trash or garbage was the focus there. So some highlights of individual items picked up were about 512 metal bottle caps, 156 plastic bottle caps, 107 balloons, 174 different pieces of plastic or foam, and then 60 straws. And something that caught my interest was about 52 hair ties were also collected, all from the peninsula. All and with their work and effort, this litter is now prevented from going into the waterways that it would empty into, the salt marsh, exiting into the Hudson, exiting into the Kill. And other things that were accomplished, they've created completely biodegradable plastic alternatives that they can care for and replace their plastic usage for up to the next 2 years, as well as looking good doing it. They were bee wax wraps that can, again, replace the plastic coverage in their food. One of our interns brought up their experience at the garden. So we worked up at the PS 76 Garden of Perseverance. And in that time, we revitalized and planted 5 garden beds, created and sowed a wildflower garden. And in the time that we were working, 3 members of the community came up to us expressing their interest to actually get in there and one, grow their own food, but also reconnect with or connect truly with the people in their community, as well as a building tenant who wants to set up a program to the building supervisor who wants to set up a program to get their tenants connected to that garden after seeing some of the work that our interns were doing. Things to look.
Which garden?
This was at the PS 76 Garden of Perseverance, up at 152nd and 51st. It's a beautiful, truly beautiful space. Work to look forward to is going to be removing pounds of invasive plants. And by invasive, we mean plants that are highly competitive and that outcompete natural plants that can provide pollination or just needed materials for our wildlife to thrive and survive. So they're going to be removing that so that way we can have a vital habitat restored in our parkways. And we're also going to be trained, or they will be trained on how to survey as well as actively surveying an area or acreage within Central Park to look for egg casings of spotted lanternfly, a new threat to our region. Pennsylvania, New York infestations have been seen. They're going to be trained on how to locate this and how to teach other people about this emerging threat, which poses, again, a threat to our crop industry, a $360 million industry, as well as to the quality of life that we could see impacted here in New York. So there's a lot of great work that we truly thank our interns for, and we're excited to dive in a little further.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, so we've been able to successfully create this outlet even during this pandemic. We also have really great partnerships, and those include the Randall Island Alliance, Natural Resource Group, and Green Thumb, just to name a few. So at this point, I feel like we have touched base on everything. We're just so glad we were able to invite everyone in this conversation. And I really did want to go ahead and give a very special thank you to Naima Silver-Matos. Thank you so much. Go Cuse. I really appreciate you. And I just want to end on one of my favorite quotes. In the end, we will only conserve what we love. We will love only what we understand. We will understand only what we are taught. Baba Dayum. So I hope moving forward, you just keep us in mind and come and join our programs. And I would love to open up for any questions if anybody has them.
Wanted to leave some time for questions. Thank you so much for your presentation. That was just fantastic. And I cannot wait now that we finally have the go ahead for, we've got the full funding for the Inwood Hill Park Nature Center. I can't wait for that to finally get done and be reopened so that we can have more of this, the access to more of this directly in our community. I've got a question from Sally Fisher.
Great. First, just a thank you to Leanna, Ashley, Iffy, and Priscilla for your stewardship of my favorite park. I had one question, which is if you could give us a little background on how a student becomes involved in this project so that we can share it with our neighbors.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? My computer did actually skip
Oh,
out.
sure. First, just thank you all for all your work. Inwood Hill Park is a great resource for our community, and we really appreciate all the stewardship you do. And my question is, how does someone become involved in the program?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Actually, so this RCC in particular is actually high school focused. So our outreach, anybody can apply online. Actually, if you just go ahead and go to our parks website, you can go ahead and submit a request and an application, and that goes ahead to our deputy directors, and then they're disseminated to the boroughs appropriately. You could also reach out to us directly. All of our contacts, we can always find the liaison to who's in charge of it each session. What's great is that each session is different, and because a new ranger is in charge, so the creativity is super unique. So yeah, so you could just reach out to us on the website or directly to our offices.
Great, thank you.
Great. Leanna, there's a question from somebody in the chat. I'm sorry, in the Q&A, if you could repeat the quote, and if you could do me a favor and not only repeat the quote, but also type it into as a response to that question so that we have it preserved in, so I can pop it into the minutes, because that really was lovely. And thank you, Jasmine, for asking that. That was a great quote.
Yeah, it's one of my absolute favorites. So it says, in the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. Baba Diem. So I really feel like, you know, when all of us teach something in some sort of way or degree, and those are the things that people really carry with them.
Thank you. Fantastic. Jennifer Hoppe has a question.
Oh, it wasn't a question. Because we're so grateful for the Rangers in Northern Manhattan Parks. If some of you on this call or in the audience have never done one of the Parks Department's Urban Park Ranger tours, you should really come out Sunday, May 23rd, 1 o'clock, the Great Trees of Inwood Hill Park. You'll not only learn about the magnificent trees that the 196 acres of the park afford, but along the way, rangers share their wisdom, their insight, answer questions. So it's a really invigorating and wonderful experience. That's Sunday, May 23rd at the Seaman and Isham entrance at 1 p.m.
Yeah, these programs are free, people, and they're amazing. And we are so lucky. And we live in New York, and we don't think of New York as being like wildlife and parks and all this stuff, but it is. And we are blessed among community boards for having, don't want to knock Central Park, but we've got more parks than any other board. And it's an incredible resource. I also really want to thank all of the interns who came out and who are on this call and who took time out of your evenings, and also to Iffy and to Priscilla for speaking up, which I know can sometimes feel a little intimidating or whatever, but y'all are pros. And if you live in Community Board 12, you should sign up to be members of our community board, or maybe look into being youth members of whatever board you do live in. Pretty much every board has a committee that deals with parks, usually just parks, or maybe parks and environment, parks and culture. So if you like the work that you're doing and you want to participate in some more civic engagement, that's also a venue available to you. I've got one question from a member of the public, Cassandra Collazo. If you want to go ahead, for some reason, we don't seem to be able to unmute the attendees. So Cassandra, if you want to throw your question into the Q&A, I can ask it on your behalf. And we've got a bunch of people who are saying that Susanna Montez saying that she's had a really good experience, an amazing experience with park rangers. They are the best. All right. I'm just gonna can you ask your question here? All right, hopefully Cassandra can ask her question to the panelists and then she can get the last word and then we will move on to the next agenda item.
Liz, is it okay if Jennifer repeats where on Isham? I know Sunday, May 23rd at 1, it's Isham Street and what?
Yeah, so I think what we're going to do is since it's, let's segue into Jennifer's report and she can include that along with the other things that she announces. And Cassandra, if you're able to type your question in the chat, we can circle back to it if y'all don't mind staying on the call for another few minutes. And Jennifer, I might wind up interrupting you. Oh, here we go. Cassandra says, just wanted to give a huge shout out to Ashley. She led my Girl Scout Troop 3205 on a surviving wilderness course, and she was amazing. I also have a question for Jennifer and an update on the tree planting for the young boys that drowned in 2020. Yeah. Okay. Ebenezer, can you promote Cassandra to a panelist so she can give us an update on that tree planting? And then while we're waiting for that, Jennifer, you want to start up with your report, and
Sure.
Leanna and Ashley, thank you so much for
Thank you
your
so much for having
incredible
us. You
work.
all have a great night.
You too.
Thank you for your time.
Everybody, thank your Urban Park Rangers.
Yes, and they have the best hats. They really have the best hats.
Thank you.
All right, Liz, should I go?
Yes, please.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. Obviously, not everybody's going to stay on the call and when we're talking about all the events that are coming up, but I just wanted to let people know a shortcut way. Naima, the tree tour is at Seaman in Isham, at the entrance to Inwood Hill Park, May 23rd at 1 p.m. We've got more than 24 free public programs in the parks uptown in the next month, put on by the Urban Park Rangers, the Fort Tryon Park Trust, Dykeman Farmhouse, lots of our park partners. So you can always, a shortcut way is northernmanhattanparks.org and click on events. And most of what's going on in the parks is there. So we are opening up because we've got, I guess our COVID rates are 2%. And a lot more people are getting vaccinated, which is really exciting. So there are lots of programs and activities happening out in the park. We, of course, are practicing safe distancing protocols. Masks are still required if you're within 6 feet of someone. And the current cap on events is large-scale events. Size of location allowing is 500 people. So lots going on. New York Pops Up is partnering with the Parks Department. They've been doing free concerts out in the parks, which is great. A lot of our arts and cultural organizations are partnering with the Parks Department to bring free performances. Pied Piper Children's Theater, some opera companies. Last month we had the Chamber Music Group was at the committee. So a lot of great things are going on. So I can't urge you enough. If you're counting on a certain spot being available, if you would like to do a public program, please apply for a special event permit for the New York City Parks Department. It would really be heartbreaking if you advertise to all your friends, your colleagues, lined up instruments and everything else, get to a site only to find out someone else has the permit for it. Or if you're looking to have something quiet, a ceremony, and you plan something and advertise it, you show up and, turns out there's already a film shoot permit issued for that time. So a special event permit also protects you. You can apply for those on www.nyc.gov/parks. They're required for groups over 20. And if you're counting on a spot, definitely have that permit on your person the day of your event. If you're looking to conduct your business in the park or collect money in the park for service in the park, that requires a temporary use authorization. We understand that everyone wants to do everything outside, but in order for everything to be safe, consistent, transparent, we need people to follow the parameters that have been put in place. So you can go on Parks website, go through the special event permit process. If you're intending to charge fees, it links you to the mechanism you can use for doing that, which does involve a fee to the city. Another announcement, I want to thank everybody who signed up for the Litter Ambassador program. Obviously, with everyone using the parks and so many more performances, activities, picnics, outdoor dining, graduation, everything happening in the park, we need your help to keep our parks thriving and beautiful. So we have got to pitch in and do your part. Show Your Park Some Love campaign. It's a multi-pronged approach. We've got litter ambassadors signed up for Saturdays and Sundays to hand out bags to people, encourage them to throw their trash away. We've got Meaningful Mondays at key sites Monday mornings at 8 a.m. with our elected officials and our civic partners. The first one we're kicking off at Inwood Hill Park Monday, June 7th at 8 a.m. We're also doing that Inwood Hill Park July 6th and August 16th. Highbridge Park has some sites in Fort Tryon, Dong and Lawn as well. And that'll all be up on northernmanhattanparks.org and click on events. But come on out to the first one, Monday, June 7th at 8 a.m. And you'll see on bus shelters, maybe when you're riding in the taxi, on the radio station, all about showing your park some love. So I know I'm preaching to the choir, and everyone on this call is invaluable advocate and invests in the park and protects our park, but help encourage others to do so as well. Just highlighting some of the events. Dykeman Farmhouse, one of the park sites, Unspoken Voices is going to be up. You can go as soon as this Thursday, May 13th from 10 to 2. It's honoring the legacy of Black America. And it's by appointment, and it's 45 minutes, and you get to be immersed in the exhibition by yourself, which is pretty phenomenal. And it features the work of local artists, Rachel Sidlowski, Sheila Prevost, and Gwendolyn Black, whose work reflects on and reacts to the recent research about the enslaved and free people, whose work enabled the Dykeman Farm to prosper. It's $6, but it's an immersive experience. We've got Sunday Stewardship coming up in Fort Tryon this Sunday, and I mentioned the Great Trees of Inwood Hill Park. Friends of Bennett Park is having a cleanup and planting day on May 23rd at 11 a.m. Second Saturday, trail work party and bike share. You can come out, learn how to tend the trails in Highbridge Park's mountain biking course, Manhattan's only mountain biking course. There's bikes that you can try out to ride the course, and you'll meet a community of other riders who you can ride with going forward. And last but not least, please mark your calendars for June 6th. We're having the 19th annual Drums Along the Hudson Native American Festival in Inwood Hill Park. It will be scaled down from past years. Joy Harho, who is the
It'll be
first
scaled up from last year, though.
Last year, we did do a virtual event. Joy Harjo, who is the first Native American Poet Laureate of the United States, was the honoree. And it was a collection of virtual performances that Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance also showcased. This year, we are going to be in person at Inwood Hill Park. Louis Mofsey and the Thunderbird Dancers will be putting on a powwow. Hannah's Second Son, the Silver Cloud Singers and Dancers will be there. Mohawk Elder Tom Porter will be leading us in the Tree of Peace planting. So come on out. It's a great event. You will sign up via Eventbrite, but mark your calendars. More details coming. There are about 23 different performers and Native American artisans and crafts for sale there. But it's a great day. And capital projects. You've got the whole public safety discussion, Liz, as an agenda.
We have the whole
Okay, so-
public safety discussion still
Okay.
on, so if there
So
are
any capital project questions, let's do that. I want to say one thing, the Inwood Nature Center. I know everyone's really excited that that's going to be reopening. I do want to call attention to the fact that since Hurricane Sandy, the lower part of Inwood Hill Park and like the community around Dykeman has benefited from the interim location. And I know a lot of families are going to be sad to lose that. So as excited as we all are about the Nature Center reopening, it means that the Rangers' constant presence on Dykeman Street will be moving northward. This committee will be coming back before the summer on the Dykeman Rest. Some of you participated in the public scoping meeting for that $5 million project at Highbridge, which we're excited is going to be advancing. It's a gateway to Inwood, and it's the first thing a lot of people see as they come off the 1 train. Ann Loftus Playground is going to be closing for construction, probably the second week in June. That's a $4.2 million project that this committee played an instrumental role in helping shape. It was paused because of COVID, and it's now advancing. The playground will be closed for 12 months, which we recognize will have a big impact on the community.
the whole playground?
The whole playground, because a lot of the work is underneath and infrastructure, having disjointed parts sort of doesn't necessarily work from a construction mobilization standpoint. We met with the contractor out on site last week. It also means if the contractor can have the whole site, he can get done more quickly. And I think that's in the best interest of the community is to do it expeditiously, because it's going to be pretty labor intensive project with repiping. And the Audubon Playground is essentially done. If you haven't gone over there, I strongly encourage you to do so. The comfort station piece of that project is going to be done probably by the start of the school year. But the playground is being enjoyed in the interim. I'm just trying to think what else this committee, the Greenway, Gorman Park, and the Bennett Avenue Rock Face is part of the same citywide retaining wall contract. We had mentioned to this committee that the bike path would be closing for construction for 4 months. Its start date is a little bit up in the air. We're working with the Department of Transportation on the on-street route. There's been some discussions about can parks shift the order of which project goes first so that the bike path will be available during the peak summer months when most people want to be using it. So we're trying to work that out.
Okay.
Any other, we have about 24 different capital projects that are in various stages in our parks uptown. It's consider over $100 million worth of investments, which is great. And we're just excited, so excited that so much is going forward.
Okay, thank you. So we've got somebody who's going to throw in a question in the Q&A. We've got Cassandra, who's got a quick question. She said something about working with Ranger Bob on the planting, but you had a more specific question, Cassandra, for Jennifer?
Yes, really just two quick things, Jennifer. Hi, how are you? Again,
Good. How are you?
fine, huge shout out to Ranger Rob. I can't even give him a big enough shout out. He's working really closely with me on getting that tree, you know, for those two boys, a commemoration. We're going to have a celebration. I'm hoping it's before the end of the school year, but it may be during the summer. And, you know, he said we can even go into the fall. You know, we have that timeline. So I will update the committee when that happens. I was in touch with a young lady in reference to getting a bench, you know, for the plaque. And when I spoke to her, she quoted me a $1,500 price. I went back to 278, the school 278 principal, and she said no, that was way beyond their budget. I even approached the PTA, and nobody wanted to, you know, to pay that amount. So the bench right now, we've just put it to the side. The families weren't too gung-ho about it anyway, but they definitely are on board for the tree. The second thing I wanted to tell you was that Girl Scout USA, not only Girl Scout Greater New York, has a new initiative called Girl Scout Tree Promise in collaboration with Elliott Wildlife Values Project and American Forest. They're launching this bold tree planting, and Girl Scouts to the 50s around the country are basically pledging to plant 5 million trees in 5 years. So I wanted to, I can't talk to you now, I know, because, you know, we're at a meeting and time is of the essence, but if I could speak to you, you know, offline or email you just so you can point me in the right direction, because I've grabbed the Rangers, you know, in Woodhill Park, I've grabbed them. And I even
sure.
Okay.
And we actually, the forest management at Inwood Hill Park, because it's mapped Forever Wild, we have the 146 acre Shirakapak Nature Preserve. We only allow certain trees in the forest sourced from a certain area because we're trying to avoid particular diseases. So I can connect you, if you're looking to do something in the forest, I can connect you with them about a location and a species. And then if it's out in the park, I can work with you with my horticulture staff, because we'd want to plant in an area where we know we have access to water, particularly given how horrible these boys' tragic deaths were. Having a tree in a location that we know it can't thrive in would, and then for people to come upon that, it's more heartbreaking. So I'll happily work with you and connect you to our forestry and my horticulture staff.
That's wonderful. Would you mind just putting your contact in the chat? Because I don't
Sure.
have it. Okay.
I don't know that I can do chat as a panelist.
Yeah, what you can do is you can
Q&A?
go in the Q&A. You know, you should have access to the chat, and you can just respond to Cassandra's question. So I do have one more question. This is, I'm going to take it here and then I'm going to move the agenda because we do have another very large item that we haven't even gotten to yet. So Jasmine Coles has typed into the Q&A, my name is Jasmine. I've been advocating for Dominique Alexander for about 10 months now. On June 9th, 2020, Dominique was found hanging from a tree in Fort Tryon Park. The Alexander family does not believe this was a suicide. Myself and a few others in the community have been supporting the Alexander family. We wanted to talk to you about getting additional lighting in the park in honor of Dominique. Could this be a city capital project? So first of all, that was just a terrible, terrible thing that happened with Dominique. This is, you know, again, this is the Parks Committee, not the Public Safety Committee. And although it happened in a park, it is a public safety issue. So we're not going to cover that here. The question of lighting is an ongoing question that we have fielded in this committee many times. It's often a very highly ranked capital priority. Weirdly, although it's lighting in a park, It's actually goes through the Traffic and Transportation Committee because DOT is responsible for the lighting. So rather than make you go to the Traffic and Transportation Committee, again, it's the collaborative dance that we chairs do of talking with our counterparts of other committees. So I've already had a conversation with the T&T chair. She is very well aware that lighting is a continuing issue. And when we speak in the fall about our capital project priorities, I will remind her to please add this to her list because it is important. It's an issue that, again, goes through her committee, but it tends to come up in this committee. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm like giving the brush off that it's not important. It's very important, but the time that we talk about that is when we do our capital and expense budget priority rankings, which we do in the fall. And this particular item will be ranked out of the Traffic and Transportation Committee since it's a DOT project. So with that, I'm gonna move the agenda and we're gonna go to brief programming updates,
Hey,
please.
Liz?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've got
Yeah.
to
Some
raise
questions
hand.
from the public, but there are three
Yeah.
questions from.
I'm so sorry. I was toggled to attendees and I didn't see any hands up. That is
And
my
I will
bad.
say, I think I saw Noble, Sally, and then myself.
Correct.
Yeah, that is the order in which they are. So quick questions, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Jen, really, one, thank you so much for your work on the park. I just always want to say that every time I see you. Secondly, when it comes to High Bridge Park, the question of, are the hours going to change now that there's sunlight later? Because I've had a few folks ask me, why are we closing at 8? Just wanted to see if there's any plans in the works or if there's something else that we should know about.
So ultimately, we'd love to keep it open later. We, as part of the $30 million Anchor Parks project, we did light that path. Not all of it's been activated yet, but soon. So the goal would be sure to keep it open, maybe as late as 9. Right now, the park enforcement staffing levels don't allow for a later shift. If going forward, their headcount increases, then we can obviously revisit it. We'll be exploring with some seasonal staff whether we can make adjustments to it when all the lighting has been energized. So we're not opposed to it. It's just when can we pull together the resources to make it happen?
Sure, thank you. And Chair Liz, I believe that was a question in the chat. So if you get to that, just, yeah, cool.
It was indeed.
All right.
Sally?
Yes, fellow board member Elsie Kaminer had sent me a question about the recently passed legislation that prohibits the use of non-biologic pesticides such as glyphosate in our parks. I know there's an exemption in the bill for natural areas. She just wanted to know, what are the exemptions in our parks? Where is it being used?
So usually, so you probably know, Sally, as a super steward, when Forestry, Horticulture, and Natural Resources is doing a full restoration of an area, they can hand pull everything out, but for certain things, you're going to want to paint on the stump to prevent the invasive vine from growing back if you can't necessarily weed wrench it out. So in certain instances, the NRG will sort of do targeted applications with the painting, not anything that's more airborne. I believe there's also an exemption for certain areas that are completely hardscape, but that weeds might be coming up. But in terms of natural areas, you wouldn't do it within a certain distance from a water body. You usually would do topical, so it's not going everywhere, and it's always very targeted. It's not like we're crop dusting.
Right.
I can ask if you'd like. I can ask for sort of more expansive parameters that the Natural Resources Group of Forestry uses.
Great.
But I know it's always very, very targeted, specific, with the end goal of fuller restoration.
That would be really helpful, because the question, I keep getting asked the question, and I'm sure you keep getting asked the question. So the more.
Sure, I'll put that down.
Perfect.
Okay, Daryl?
Yeah, I had a question about the Ann Loftus Playground construction. One, the north gate there, will that be closed completely? So like no one could go even on that north end of the park? That's one. And then two, I know we've talked about this before, but the timing of the renovation just seems very odd, because it is at the beginning of June, at the beginning of summer. You know, with a park like this, it'd be great if it happened at the end of summer. You said it's on a 12-month plan. If that's the case, you know, I definitely see a scenario where there's overages and you're going over. That means you really have 2 summers without this playground. And that's, to me, problematic. I think if you started, you know, at the end of this summer and, you know, finish at the end of next summer, you're only missing 1 summer, even with overages. So can you just talk about that as well?
Sure, happily. So as you may recall, this project was supposed to happen last June. And with COVID, the city's Office of Management and Budget put a hold on all type of procurement. In any type of construction, you get escalation the longer you wait on your construction, your bid prices. We weren't certain that the contractor who we were about to award to a year ago would honor the bid prices that they gave us last year. So the project was already at risk. Thankfully, they did. Before any other sort of financial, you know, shift happens in the city, and while we've already gone through the procurement process and have a willing and qualified bidder, we don't want to run the risk of having to start a whole bidding process, and then which the procurement, you know, which takes a year, as you know, and then we'd end up having lost 2 years as a result, and the construction prices escalate. So because we know the project needs to be done, and we're having the flooding condition, you know, several years now, we don't want to delay it any further. So while it's not ideal, we hope that people use the lawn to the south, or the whole Broadway Promenade. We're planning more programming on the Dongan Lawn south of in Loftus. People will be able to make use of the Payson Playground, and with some of more of open streets, open culture, sort of people find other outlets for their recreational needs. But
right. And to my original question,
closing the whole site too, his hope is that he'll be able to streamline the reconstruction.
Okay. I'm going to actually move the agenda. So I'm going to allow Danielle, who has not spoken at all yet, to ask her question. And I'm going to ask Naima and Barbara, both of whom have Jennifer's contact information, to please ask her your questions in some other format, because it is already 10 minutes to 8 and we haven't gotten to the main item on our agenda, and we still have another agenda item before that. So Danielle.
Thanks. Super quick, just piggybacking off of Noble's question about the hours in the parks. Would the bathrooms also be open during that time, or the hours be extended as well?
You're talking about High Bridge and the bridge hours?
The park hours. I don't know if we were talking specifically about just that park.
We were just talking about the actual historic High Bridge closes at 8 o'clock. It gets locked.
Mm-hmm.
The park itself is open till 10.
Okay. I think maybe I missed it. Maybe I thought we were talking generally about a bunch of parks hours being extended as we consider as they begin to reopen? Sorry.
Oh, no, the
Parks are
parks are all
generally
open.
open till 1, I thought.
Yeah, playgrounds close at dusk. Most parks are uptown are open at 1 a.m. Some close at 10 p.m.
Okay. Has there, just as long as we're on the subject, has there been any talks of extending the hours for bathrooms?
The bathrooms do stay open later as sunset is later. So it goes with the sunset.
Okay, got it.
So they close at dusk, right?
I don't know what I don't know what dusk actually is, but they're on a later track. So, you know, in the winter they close at 4, in the summer it's, you know, 7:30, 8, peak summer.
Okay. Got it. I think bathrooms are always, I know that's something that's important for our committee, for a bunch of people on our committee. For me, somebody who's also on the public safety committee, I always think about like how, you know, there's the issue of public urination and how that's something that's criminalized. So it's like, I think it's really important that we constantly be thinking about how to build bathrooms where there aren't bathrooms and how to extend hours, especially if hours are, or if parks are open later.
Second.
Yes.
We would love funding for a very late shift of staff to do all those lockups. We have about 14 bathrooms in Northern Manhattan parks. So we're pretty well endowed compared to some communities, and we're about to add another bathroom at Adventure Playground in Highbridge at Edgecombe and 165th, and restore another bathroom at Quisqueya at Amsterdam and 179th.
How about the Javits?
So we're really not shouting out here. We're not doing that. We are moving the
Apologies.
agenda. Thank you. So
Heather, my question was not for Jennifer, it was for you.
yes,
It's a quick question, just because the young, or the lady, Jasmine Cole, mentioned that she's been following up on this for 10 months. I know that you suggested reaching out to the transportation committee. So I guess just if you can just quickly just give it just a quick outline of what will be the follow-ups, just so that it's not, I know it's not on you, just so that.
so as I was writing into the chat to somebody who asked about that, and the process for
They don't take another 10 months to get an answer to something, you know, just so that they know what will be the next steps to make
Sure.
this.
You asked a question.
Yeah.
I'd very much like to answer it. Thank you. So the capital budget process happens in the fall. We have and I'm going to speak backwards. We have a public hearing where the public is welcome to come and give testimony on their priorities for capital and for capital projects and expense programs. That's usually the third Tuesday in October, but the date, since it's only June, has not yet been set. Prior to the public hearing, where all of the board's priorities are voted on, we have conversations and rankings within each committee, identifying what each committee's priorities are. That happens at the committee meeting in October. Prior to that, we have a conversation in committee that happens in September, where we review and begin to think about what were our priorities last year, what has happened in terms of projects that have gotten funded, or that have been completed and so no longer need to be prioritized, and we begin to formulate what our priorities would be. In preparation for that meeting, I usually go through all of our minutes and pull out from each set of minutes what are conversations that we had about particular programs or projects so that they can be prioritized. That's an exercise in which I engage personally, usually in August, in preparation for the September meeting. If there is an item that relates to another committee, I will then forward that item to that committee chair so that they can go through their process. So August is the survey assessment. September is the preliminary conversation in committee. October is the committee's ranking. Later in October is the full board ranking. And the public is always engaged in these conversations. So it's going to be part of the minutes that this came up again, and that people think that lighting is important for obvious reasons. So that's going to be part of the presentation and consideration in September, and then our committee's ranking in October, the other committee's rankings in October, the full board's ranking in October, and then it goes to the Office of Management and Budget, and then that document forms the basis that the city council members use when they look at their next year's budget priorities. That's how they know what the community board's budget priorities are. This is the process. This is the process that it has been, and I welcome you to read prior minutes of this committee, of the full board, that are all online on our website. You can read up on all of that.
Point of order. Sorry.
Yes. And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but it feels like I think we've seen this show. But it seemed like Barbara had one question. She might have been the last outstanding person with the question. So if she still has it, I would encourage
well, I
her
was
to.
about to say, and with that, I'd really like to move the agenda.
All right, that's fine. I appreciate your
And
answer.
with that, I would really like to move the agenda. So next on the.
Thank you so much, Liz.
You're welcome. Next on the agenda, we've got brief programming updates from Cultural and
I'm
Friends of
sorry,
Parks groups.
did Barbara have a question?
Her hand is down, so.
We were never given the final drawing for the Loftus playground. We were never given the final drawings of what the fountain would look like, and also how the intermittent showers would look like. And I do think the committee should review that. We never had it. When Jennifer came with
We
that.
came back a second time to the committee and gave a presentation, and I believe there was, and sent materials to the city councilman as well.
Yeah, but I asked you, for example, how would the intermittent sprays work? Because we had been guaranteed that. And did you have an animated animated feature showing that? And you said, no, they can't do that. I don't know that. And so I said, well, we really need to see that. And you said you'd get back to us, and then that didn't happen. Also, the final drawing wasn't, I believe, complete. So I do think that we should see, since this has gone out for bid now, we really should see what the final drawings look like, and how there will be intermittent size, intermittent heights, and intermittent intervals that the spray shower will go on and off.
So Barbara, that was presented at a meeting, the revised design, when we came back a second time. I don't think they were able to do any sort of animation, but I definitely recall the sequencing in the PowerPoint that they showed. I can reach back out to the designers and see if anything different was presented or based on Public Design Commission input. But ultimately, the Public Design Commission has now approved the design. That's who Parks has to answer to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to make a point of order because Daryl didn't. Thank you, Daryl, for making sure that Barbara was able to answer that question. However, Elizabeth, I have to be very clear that I feel like, you shut down the question. I did have a follow-up, which is at the end of the day, a Black man was found hanging from a tree at Fort Tryon Park. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of his death. And in the question Q&A section, Jasmine Coles mentioned that the family does not believe it was a suicide. So maybe that's not what we're going to talk about here. However, can we at some point, Elizabeth, as the chair of this committee, is it possible to at some point have a conversation to figure out a way to honor the memory of Dominique Alexander? Maybe it could be the idea of planting a tree, or maybe it could just be honoring the request of Jasmine Coles to get on the agenda for the month of June, simply just to share who Dominique Alexander was and for us to maybe give him a moment of silence to honor his memory. I think it is important for us to not brush over this. I know that this is Parks and Cultural Affairs. I know that a Black man was found hanging from a tree, and that's public safety. However, you know, it is not, this topic is not something that's limited to just any committee. This is, when we talk about Black Lives Matter, it's anywhere at any point, right? And again, I know we don't want to talk about that it was a suicide or not, but can we talk about, not right now, but can we just you know, parking lot it or put it on the side that maybe next month we'll just set aside 2 minutes just for a moment of silence for Dominique Alexander. If that's too much to ask, let me know.
Okay, happy is not, I was gonna say I'm happy to, but that's obviously not the right word. We did observe a moment of silence the day that he died, which coincidentally was the day of our committee meeting.
We did. I remember.
It is absolutely appropriate to observe a moment of silence in his memory on the 1-year anniversary of his death at our meeting next month, which will not be exactly the anniversary, but will be close to it. That is completely appropriate. As you heard with the short back and forth between Cassandra Collazo and Jennifer Hapa regarding a memorial planting of a tree in memory of the 2 boys who drowned in the river near Inwood Hill Park. If the Alexander family wants to pursue that kind of memorial tree planting or something like that, that is appropriate. That's not something that actually goes through the committee. No committee approval process is required. That's something that they can reach out to the Parks Department to do. And everybody has access to Jennifer's phone number, and they are aware of how to do that.
And we can approve a resolution in
respectfully-
support.
I mean, we could, but there's no need to. We spend a lot of time doing many things, and we do not need to
I'm just saying the options.
write a resolution
Yeah,
and
I'm just saying the
approve a
options.
memorial tree. So with that, it's now 8:05. I respectfully request that you allow me to exercise my authority as chair of this committee in moving the agenda, and I will take no more questions on this topic. Thank you. So.
Thank you, Liz.
Brief programming updates from cultural and Friends of Parks organizations. If you all can raise your hands, folks who are the attendees. We've got Barbara Peck. Ebenezer, I'm going to need you to make Barbara Peck a panelist. And while you're doing that, okay, I just want to refer to some things that happened in the chat. Jasmine indicated she doesn't want a tree planted. We want to change this so it doesn't happen again. We need more lights. That was actually what I understood from your original comments, and I was working on a reply in the Q&A on that process, but I did wind up answering it live so that people understand that. Before we go to Barbara, I just want to read something from Martin Collins, who would have read it himself as an update from Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance. We invite you to join Grammy nominee Miguel Zenon and Columbia University's Zuckerman Institute online for a performance at 7:30 Monday, May 17th. Thursdays with Noma featuring Uptown artists resumes at 8 p.m. this Thursday, May 27th. That's next Thursday, 2 weeks from Thursday, and continues at 7:30 p.m. each Thursday thereafter. The 19th annual Uptown Art Stroll starts Friday, May 28th. Artists, send your Noma Send NOMA your events as soon as possible for the Manhattan Times special insert. And finally, Grow with Google partnered with NOMA for a June 4th workshop benefiting artists. Tell us what time and day works for you. Info on all events at noma.nyc, I'm sorry, nomanyc.org. Okay. Barbara,
Madam Chair,
yes.
just so all of the upcoming speakers know, is what is the time limit for their announcements?
The time limit is, it's 2 minutes, although Alexander Campos is going to have 3 minutes. So if you can also, Ebenezer, if you can also make Alexander Campos and Dorquis Ramos panelists. And now Barbara, and by Barbara, I mean Barbara Peck, not Barbara Fraser.
Hi, thanks, Liz. Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Peck, a board member of Harlem River Community Rowing. We're a volunteer group committed to bringing the joy of rowing to Inwood and Greater New York. Our other goal is promoting the Harlem River as New York's most underutilized recreational resource. We offered free rowing in Inwood for 3 years until 2020, when COVID put a halt to our programming. We plan to get back rowing this year, but the Moscota Marsh dock in Inwood closed for reconstruction, and it's now been postponed till the fall. So we're exploring other options for this summer, including working with the nonprofit Row New York. We'll be talking about our plans at our first annual community town hall next week on Thursday, May 20th. This town hall is for community members who've rowed with us in the past, who are interested in rowing with us in the future, for all our supporters who helped us through a tough year, and for anyone who's interested in promoting on-water recreation in Inwood. If that's you, please come join us on Thursday, May 20th at 7 p.m. for our 1-hour virtual town hall. Topics will be where we're going, short-term and long-term, if and when we might get back in the water, what our program could look like, and as before, rowing will be free for all. We want to hear from you. What kind of programming would you like to see? How about off-water activities to supplement the on-water ones? To find out how to register for the town hall, go to our website, harlemrivercr.org. I'm going to post it in the Q&A. Or find us at Facebook, Harlem River Community Rowing, or just Google us. See you there, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. If you could do me a favor and just email that to me, it will make my minute taking much easier.
Will do.
I appreciate that. Next up, we have Dorquis Ramos.
Muted, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Dorcas. I am the Deputy Director of Uptown Stories. And for those who don't know us, Uptown Stories is a local organization that has been here in Washington Heights and serving our community's children since 2014, offering fun, creative writing workshops to kids ages 7 to 17. And we cover a bunch of different genres, including poetry and fiction, comics, screenplay, journalism, you name it, we've taught it. We also partner with local schools and other organizations, such as Word Up Community Bookstore and Booney Coffee, both of which now carry our anthologies of student work. So I think it was as of this week, Booney Coffee in all their locations will have our anthologies for sale. We typically meet at the Cornerstone Center at the church on 189th and Bennett, or in Fort Tryon Park. And we've been virtual since the start of the pandemic a year ago, but we've been slowly incorporating more in-person workshops over the last couple of semesters. So right now we are in our spring semester and we have 4 in-person workshops and 3 virtual workshops. And I mean, the kids are thrilled to get out of each other's like hair for a couple hours a week. We are getting ready to announce our summer lineup very soon, definitely by next June, mid-June. And some of the confirmed classes are already on our site at uptownstories.org. As always, tuition for all of our classes is pay what you can. No proof of income is necessary because we believe every child deserves a seat at our table. And so please check us out at uptownstories.org and sign up for our newsletter so you'll know when enrollment for summer begins.
Thank you. Perfect. No questions. Danielle and Sarah, are your questions for Dorcas?
Mine was just to get on the list to report on upcoming events.
Oh, got it. Okay. And all right. So
I didn't lower mine from before, sorry.
got it. No worries. All right. Alexander Campos, come on down.
Wow, what did I win? Okay.
Oh, actually, before you start, Dorcas, if you could do me a favor and just send me, again, like a quick, just shoot me a quick email. That way, better for the minutes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you again for having us. First of all, I want to say that our new director, Guillaume Kientz, Guillaume Kientz, Kientz, started this spring in March or April, and he's now settled down and is meeting people and going around town and building relationships with community leaders and also organizations in the neighborhood. And he's eager to meet as many people as possible. And I've reached out to a few of you already, and I'll continue to do that. He will be coming on to the June meeting to introduce himself to all of you and do a small little presentation as the new director of the Hispanic Society. So we're really grateful for that time in June. And I think you'll like him. He's really energetic, he's young, and he's really committed to building Hispanic Society as a community resource, which is exciting for all of us who have just started working at the Hispanic Society. That's like me. I want to mention that we have a concert for part of our series this year, and it's going to be, well, it's tentatively scheduled for May 24th and maybe pushed to June 3rd, but it will be San Nabula musicians Jude Zilek and James Kennedy will present a pre-recorded concert of Spanish Baroque works for violin and harpsichord from the 18th century, featuring works by Jose Arando and Juan de Ledesma. Again, this is part of our series for the world US premiere of the opera Apollo and Daphne, which will be on June 30th. So we've been doing these mini little presentations that will lead up to the culminating premiere in June. We hope you do join us. Of course, this information will be e-blast once the date is finalized. And of course, it will be also on our website. I think the issue has to do with getting ready to present this presentation. Additionally, on May 26th, we will be having our virtual benefit, and it's really modestly priced. And I think we are actually sending out an invite to everyone that they can attend for free. We didn't do our annual gala this year because of COVID, which is an important event that we do to raise critical general operating funds. So, but we're doing a small virtual benefit. We have some sponsors and supporters. Trustees really have contributed heavily. So we're going to probably make it free to anyone who wishes to attend. And well, we are going to make it free to anyone who wishes to attend. But we're still trying to get some donations in. So before I release the free link, we're trying to secure some more donations. So that should be available like mid-May. And I'll send that to Liz, and she could share it to all when it's ready. And then additionally, we are pleased again to partner with NOMA, Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance, to present two exhibitions now. One is a mural project called Latinx Diaspora, which features 4 murals from Uptown artists who have created murals that were first shown for like less than 2 weeks at the United Palace, in front of the United Palace. And it was a short run, so we're going to have it for the whole summer on our terrace. And we're also creating community programs. We're doing family days. We're going to be doing some panel discussions. The family days will be on site. So of course, will be registration. But the big news is that now we're partnering again with NOMA to do a small exhibition of In the Heights, the musical, the movie and the play, some photographs that were taken during production, and we'll be featuring it. And and that'll be opening June 9th or so. So that's it. So we hope to see you often, and we'll have information how to register for time reservations. Of course, the exhibitions are free.
Perfect. That was 1 second to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I look forward to meeting with the new ED and to hearing his presentation next month. Next up, Sally Fisher, Friends of Inwood Hill Park.
Hi, we had 2 successful events just passed. Our 5th annual Earth Day Festival was April 22nd to the 24th. I just wanted to thank all our partners and the hundreds of people that came by. Rachel Joachim, Jenny Sherman, Inwood Sprouts, Beauty Coffee, the Washington Heights Food Council, Ring Garden, Carol Mulligan, the New York City Health and Hospitals Corp Test and Trace Corps, Annette Aguilar, Elisa Gore, and lots of new friends and old friends and family. We had guided walks, a pollination station, a parks cleanup, gardens to go, upcycled arts, a community drum circle, etc. So it was really successful. The next weekend, May 1st, we hosted the 10th annual Riverkeeper Sweep. We had 2 sites this year, the Dykeman Pier and the Northern Inwood Hill Park shoreline. Between the 2 sites, we had 66 volunteers and they collected 1,125 tons of garbage and recyclables. So it's a really successful event. In fact, given the success of that event, we will be hosting another river sweep the weekend of the 5th and 6th, obviously not on the 6th now that that's Drums Along the Hudson, in celebration of World Oceans Day, because what we don't collect at the river will end up in the ocean. There's lots of other things coming up. You can check plantings and that kind of stuff. You can check us out on Facebook or Instagram. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other updates? Community orgs? No.
Well, yeah, I'd like to comment on the Ring Garden.
Sure, very briefly.
Yeah, the Ring Garden is even more open now. Please come by, bring your compost, also help with the plantings and help with the gardening. Also, now that many of the COVID restrictions have been lifted, our cycle of different events will be happening. We'll be participating in the Uptown Arts Stroll, the Art in the Garden, other types of events. And so just come on by and participate.
Thank you. I was in the ring the other day. It was looking beautiful. Thank you to all of the volunteers who make it such an excellent
Are
space.
you a member, Liz?
You know what? I'm not. I should join. Thank you for that.
Please do.
Okay. Without further ado, it's 8:21. This meeting is obviously going to go until 9. We've had a lot of conversation around parks and safety and the overlap between between public safety issues, parks issues, specifically with regard to policing, enforcement, quality of life, and what is whose responsibility, what's PEP, what's NYPD, what's fire, what's what. Tanya Bonner has done incredible work with a large group of community activists and interested stakeholders of all kinds from all over the district, from 155th Street North, east and west of Broadway. It's a diverse and hard-working group that came out recently with a multi-point plan that had programmatic aspects, staffing aspects, and capital aspects on ways of enhancing public safety, particularly in the within and around parks as we get to the summer months. Alex, I don't know if you can see it, but Susanna Montez asked if you can share your upcoming events in the chat. So if you could possibly pop those in so people can cut and paste them would be great. So I'd like to turn it over to Tanya to talk a little bit about some of the work that she's done. And then I want to give the precincts and the parks enforcement folks a little bit of time to comment on their plans for managing, working with each other and for helping to manage conditions so that we don't have a repeat of last summer.
Thank you, Liz, for having me today to talk about this important issue. For the sake
Can
of
you
time, I'm
turn
not going.
yourself up a little bit? It's hard to hear you.
Can you hear me good? Better now?
A little better, yeah.
Okay, let me turn it up a little bit more.
And I'm still paying attention, but I'm just going to kill my video briefly.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you for having me. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the task force itself and, you know, any particulars there. I just wanted to, I'll just briefly say that last August, if people remember, we had a tough year in 2020, as people know, and some of that included issues in the parks with people violating the park rules and regulations, unpermitted parties and large gatherings, things like that. We had a public hearing last August with the community board about noise. We had a huge attendance. I was told maybe like 400 people or so. And out of that, was this task force, the idea of this task force to bring together stakeholders to address, who could come together, discuss it, analyze, what's happening and to come up with some solutions. And so, but the community wanted this effort to be purely community led by them. And so that's what we've done. The task force was formed last fall. We have representatives from schools, small business, elderly, youth, tenant groups, you name it. We have people there who are representing the different constituencies in our community, as well as academics who've been helping us to kind of work through issues of noise and its impact on our health. And so we want to thank them as well. So out of that, we've been meeting since November, every month. And we had an opportunity to meet with all of the agencies that, have some sort of enforcement role, including the Parks Department. We also had an opportunity to meet with elected officials as well to talk about, from their end, what can be done and what some of the challenges are. And last year, we did look at some of the problems and areas. We asked some community members to tell us what they were noticing, observing in the park, some of the things that, were causing a disruption to their quality of life. Is it possible I can share a screen, Liz?
I think so, because I can share screen. So and we're
I need
both
to be enabled to
participants.
do it. Yeah, I need to be enabled. So maybe that comes from.
Do you not see a share screen on the bottom? Because
No, it is, but it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So it needs to be enabled.
Oh, okay. Ebenezer, can you please enable screen sharing? Ebenezer.
I'm working on that. Hold on 1 second. Let me find
Okay.
Tanya first.
Thank you so much. While he's working on that, I'm just gonna pause you for a second, Tanya, and let everybody know. It's not really clear to me who can read what in the Q&A in the chat and in the chat. So I'm just going to announce something that should have come in on the previous agenda item, which is please note that there will be a Hike the Heights event where all will gather at Bruce's Garden at 9 a.m. for a walk to the COVID Healing Garden at 190th and Amsterdam Avenue, with multiple stops in between at community building spaces. There will simultaneously be hikes all around the world. The date is June 5th. That is a Saturday, and it's, I forget what annual iteration of Hike the Heights it is, but there are hikes all over this community, and it's a great event to get out and get active with your neighbors. Okay.
National
we have-
Trails Day.
Say what? Yes, National Trails Day. Okay, we have,
Yes.
Can everybody see that?
Okay. Yes. So in our community capacity, we were putting together this survey. Basically, it's not scientific. We had a smaller sample, but it was enough because it was pretty consistent across the board, representative, as I say, in statistics of the entire community. But you can see that Inwood Hill Park was considered the most problematic. with the most problems in terms of, violations of park rules. We had other parks like Fort Tryon was on there, and Loftus actually, Fort Washington Park. So, we had, and also there's others that were listed but didn't make the list in terms of the highest, like McKenna Square, which is in Washington Heights. And most of the issues are coming in out of Inwood, as you can see, like where these park problems are happening. But we do have some problems still happening in some of the parks in Washington Heights. And we asked people what activity they observed, and so as you can see, these top lines here: loud music, loud parties, drinking, illegal drug use, large gatherings, fireworks. And again, this was during the pandemic, so people were having large gatherings when when we were still in the throes of a pandemic. And so it really, was a public health issue to have these large gatherings. But these are some of the issues that people noted were happening in the park. And as you can see, there are others that had less incidents according to the community, but still were there. So, as people said, large close gatherings, dirt bikes, littering, but most of these were related to noise. And most people were observing these things in certain hours, usually overnight, like 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., 9 p.m., between 9 p.m. and midnight. And then 5 p.m., 9 p.m. So the later hours, people were mostly observing these things in the later hours. And we'll get to why that is an issue, because of, staffing issues, resources with, the PEP officers and things like that, it makes things a little bit difficult. But these are most of the times that people were observing these behaviors. People were calling 311, but they felt that nothing was done. Most people said, what happened? Nothing. They didn't get any response. Most of them, did not contact the precinct, but they filed 311 complaints. Then we also asked people, one of the things that was surprising, we asked people if they were aware that the Parks Department had an enforcement unit, had the PEP. And a lot of people didn't know. Like half of the people didn't even know. And we think that that's really sad. We have this whole group that's doing engagement with the community, and people are not even aware that they're there or what their purpose is. So there needs to be a little bit more education there. And so that was one of those were some of the things that we, heard from the community last year. And we, as people know, we came out, as Liz noted, we came out with our recommendations as far as a task force after having conversations, which included the Parks Department and the NYPD, and we were able to come up with some recommendations. Excuse me, I have to do something here. So we came with some recommendations, and I'll just go through just the ones that are relevant to the parks, because that's what's most important. And give me 1 second. Sorry, sometimes things don't always appear in your screen. So, give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we came with a list of recommendations. We had short-term and long-term. The short-term, of course, refers to things that we feel can be done now, require minimal resources or human labor, and just some adjustments can be accomplished. We also had long-term goals, which are things that are a little bit more complicated, that it will take a lot more moving parts to achieve. And probably some mindset changes to achieve as well. As far as the parks is concerned, we wanted to look at the coordination between, if you see number 10 here, the Parks Department and NYPD, better coordinating efforts, because what we found in the conversations that they were able to have with each other when we, in our meetings, is that, there's an issue of lack of funding cut, of course, with the Parks Department having less PEP officers, less staff to do this engagement in the parks. And then there's NYPD is like, well, we're tied up with, serious kind of, issues and crimes and things like that. And, they feel they don't have the resources to have a police unit sitting outside of each of these parks and doing the sort of thing that would be necessary to stop some of this activity. And so the conversations are about how to coordinate together to identify some of the most problematic parks in the area, problematic places, and how to coordinate when there's intel received that people are preparing for a big gathering. And how can they coordinate together? And so, we're asking, one of our recommendations is for them to better coordinate, together so they can respond to that and to figure out ways, to do that. And also another one of our recommendations as it relates to parks is to redistribute some PEP officer hours, we asked, so they can be on duty during late evening and night hours when illegal parks activity is taking place. So that was one of our asks. And of course, the Parks Department, Jennifer can respond to that in terms of, what she feels is the feasibility of that. But, that was one of the things that we thought would be helpful. Like, we have activity happening after many PEP officers are off duty for the day. And how do we, figure out ways to sort of respond, because of that situation. And so those are just some of the things that, again, we have a whole list of recommendations. I'm happy to post it in the chat so people can read it themselves, but I just wanted to keep it short because I know that, Liz has many other things to do, and just wanted to talk about a few things that were related specifically to the Parks Department. If you have questions about the task force, we're happy to answer that for you. We're going to have a report coming out that basically tells the whole process and who we met with. We met with a number of agencies and had many discussions about this, and that enabled us to really understand what was possible and to come up with these recommendations based on those conversations.
Cool. Thank you. Before I take questions, and I know people are going to have questions, I just want to give, we've got Officer Perez and Detective Pabe from the 34th Precinct. Do we have somebody from the 33rd Precinct? I think we do not. And do we have somebody from Parks Enforcement? We do not. But I think I'm gonna let Jennifer speak for Parks. And Ebenezer, if you could please promote Curtis Young over to panelist. So yeah, Chris, Haiti, if you want to talk a little bit about what the 3-4 is doing as like its summer plan for staffing for some of these issues. And Jennifer, if you can talk a little bit from the Parks Enforcement side. Don't everybody speak at once. Who's on from the 3-4?
Haiti, you have to unmute yourself.
So you sound like a dispatch, Liz. Who's out? Who's up from the 3-4? 3-4.
Okay, this is
3-4.
there we go.
Yes, Lieutenant Taveras from the 3-4.
I'm sorry, tell me again your name.
Taveras, Taveras.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lieutenant.
So like I was saying, we keep a very close communication with Sergeant Rivera from Parks. Actually, this past Sunday, they already were setting up a tent approximately 5 p.m. on High Bridge Park, right there by the FDR. Parks took it down, but then they notified us, and we continue to check it to make sure that the people didn't go back there to set up again. Also, we have intel that monitors social media for pop-up locations. And also we have the NCOs that they patrol the parts of the sectors that are there. Those parks, the NCOs monitor. And that's all we've been doing. And right now we just received more cops, so we should be able to do better for the summer. I mean, these officers need to be trained, and they need to be paired up with a senior officer, but we will try our best to keep the noise down. That's all I have.
Thank you. Jennifer, can you address a little bit from?
Sure. Sure. So we currently have a significantly reduced headcount from past years. Part of that is because seasonal plans were not funded last year, so classes didn't necessarily go through academies, so we didn't have an influx of new officers. And all of that obviously was caused by COVID-related city budget cuts. What we do is we have Charlie Bello is on as well. I think we need to promote.
Yes.
Captain Bello to the-
Ebenezer, can you please promote Curtis Young and also Captain Bello from the 3-3?
So particularly with the 34th, because there's so much parkland in the 34th, we have our preseason kickoff meeting. We know the regular hotspots. We strategize on how we're going to tackle those. We as the 34th mentioned, we share intel. When we get it ahead of time, even better. But as Tanya has heard me say in some of our past working group meetings, with social media, things change very rapidly. So we might get intel that there's going to be a big pop-up party here with the DJ, this and that set up. We'll mobilize there to prevent it from setting up, along the Hudson River or up at Inwood, at the Inwood Peninsula. When they encounter that block, they might go somewhere else. So there are areas that, for the past 14 years, where we know sort of are more conducive to setups happening. And so we'll collaborate. How are we going to handle this? Or is there a way we can shut this down earlier? Can you staff this area so that we'll cover that? So we do closely coordinate, and as Officer Taveras mentioned, we work hand in glove with our neighborhood coordination officers, tracking patterns. Here's what we're seeing. Obviously, the Parks Department sort of takes the lead on more quality of life issues in the parks, and the Police Department is the lead on crime. But we definitely work hand in glove. We do not have an overnight detail unless it's for a special operation, but there are times when we do joint special ops with the NYPD. And on a regular basis, that relates right now to homeless people and people who are struggling with homelessness during the pandemic. Other times we have hate crimes, and so we'll station PEP in a certain area where that's happening to try to deter it, dampen it down. So, and the 33rd, obviously, our big joint initiative in the 33rd precinct is the High Bridge Pool, and that is reopening this season. The COVID testing center there is going to be dispersed into like mobile units around the community. But that is a significant, put significant demands on both the park enforcement and on the 33rd precinct. And we're really appreciative of their leadership in maintaining public safety at the pool, given the high volumes of use in the high heat.
Thank you. Captain Bello,
I am on.
great. You want to give us a little summary of what your plan, if you've got anything to add in terms of your specific areas and hotspots in the 3-3?
Yeah, so I actually had a meeting with forgot his name, but I guess they cover the Riverside Park yesterday in regards to how we're gonna tackle Riverside. I know currently Manhattan North Scooter Task Force is covering that 5 out of the 7 days of the week, and then the 3-3 in coordination with the 3-4, we cover the remaining days. So their schedule is from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. at night, Tuesday through Saturday. The 3-4 will cover it on Sunday, and then the 3-3 will cover it on Monday. That's on Riverside Park. High Bridge is on a case-by-case basis, depending on whether we get some 911 complaints or 311 complaints. We really don't get much violence when it comes from the High Bridge Park. I guess my problematic chronic location or chronic park is J Hood Park. That's where we get the majority of noise complaints. Either it comes over as 301 Fort Washington or via Haven. So if I was to prioritize a particular park, it's most likely going to be that. So, we've been in contact and communication with the Parks Department to see how we're going to coordinate it. Like I said, I prioritize my resources, especially since we don't have that much. We just got a new recruit class of 12 officers. They started out today, but they're going to have to go through the field training program. So they're not going to be officially assigned to basically responding to 911 for another 2 or 3 months, because they're going to be in training. So we prioritize in terms of like violence. We really do not have any violence that stems from our parks, to be honest with you. I think since I've been there, we possibly had 2 robberies in Riverside Park, spread apart. So we don't really get some of the issues, the large crowds. We do coordinate with our field intelligence officers. They'll let us know if there's any particular event or outing that's going to take place. If we're aware of it and we think it's going to be problematic or it's going to attract a large crowd, we do prepare, create a detail for it. We either request additional personnel from the borough if we think it's going to be massive, or we'll just man it from cops from the local precinct, just to ensure that we're not going to have any issues or any problems. But like I said, in terms of violence, we really do not have that. So I'm not going to have a stationary post. We do cover the pool when the pool is open. I normally have my youth officers. I'll designate them from like school-related activities when schools are not in session during the summer, and we'll designate them as to cover the pools when the pools are open.
Thank you very much. All right, we've got a bunch of questions from the committee. In this order, we got Nobles, Francisco, Danielle, and then Sally.
Thank you so much, Liz. My question is actually for Tanya, but actually, when I saw Francisco put his hand up, out of respect for my business development chair, I'll let him ask the question because I'm pretty sure he's going to ask the same thing. What I will say from a disclaimer perspective is that what I think he's about to say does take time, but at the same time, I think is a more equitable solution. Francisco, if I'm wrong about this, let me know because I'll ask it, but if not, go for it, my friend.
Actually, Nobles, go ahead. You go first. I'll wait.
Cool, thank you. So Tanya, this doesn't have to do with the parks, but it kind of does, because a lot of our hospitality venues abut parks, especially in areas that get a lot of reports. So in business development, we were talking about COVID solutions. Obviously, as you mentioned before, since more people are out, there have been more complaints last year, so on and so forth. The mayor's office has opened up a dispute resolution a division called MEND, I believe, correct, Francisco?
Yes, MEND is our acronym.
Thank you. Fully funded. And they also are partners with, I believe, Oath was the name, the acronym for the legal. Yes, for the moderating core, which is a larger
Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings.
Thank you, Daryl. So I guess the nightlife division that was founded about 3 years ago has created a dispute resolution division with Oath to be able to help residents and loud noise offending venues, again, many that abut parks, spill over into parks, so on and so forth, to try to dispute resolute between the two parties. Have you talked to them yet? Because they could be an interesting ally in your task force. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, we are aware of the nightlife commission, nightlife, and we do understand that there is a need to have a place where people can have these discussions and really look at the layers of it and talk to each other. And that's why we had suggested in our recommendations that for an office similar to that, but would deal specifically with quality of life. So that would be a commissioner's office that would be able to foster those sort of initiatives. It's one of our long-term goals that we have on our list, foster these initiatives that could address these things and deal with the complexity, bring people together to have conversations, sort of look more deeply into the problem, because we do recognize that not everything is, things are complex, but we also, as a task force, also understand that we think it's important for businesses to be educated, and that's why we did put that too, because there are rules regarding things that they can do and cannot do. It's like having outdoor speakers and DJs. That's not allowed. And these are some of the things that, whether, again, I'm not making assumptions that a business does know that that's not allowed or they do, but these are some of the educational components that need to happen so that they know they can be good neighbors as well to the community, and understand that there are certain things that you just cannot do. And that, for example, I stayed in a hotel, and I say this a lot because I sometimes have to escape because it just becomes too much. And when I was in like Columbus Circle, for example, they have restaurants, plenty on the strip of Broadway. The volume is so low, and it's tons of people outside, tons eating. But there is a level of the noise that is just respectful of the residential, because there are people living above, there are people living around the corner. We have a similar setup. So it's just a matter of education and saying to the businesses, yes, we do understand that sometimes there could be misunderstandings and miscommunication, but there are also just rules that people are not abiding by, and we need more education to say, hey, you cannot have outdoor speakers and DJs. I've seen this myself.
So you've spoken to Mend. I'm sorry. So
I haven't spoken to Men, no.
Okay.
But you're correct.
Because we have the contact. We can certainly,
Oh,
Francisco's
yeah.
probably gonna talk about the same. We can definitely hook you up. I certainly think you should talk to them.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think along with we can bring people together, but there needs to be a commitment from businesses to abide by the rules.
Which is the point of Mend, and they would fail in their mission if that didn't happen. So I'll let Francisco go, but thank you for answering.
I would love for you to connect about this through the task force. Love that suggestion. And thank you for making it. Francisco.
Yes. Hey guys. Hey Tanya.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So yes, to follow up with Nobles, I think I actually had a sidebar conversation with Liz, and I mentioned the same thing to her as well. For some other thing that we were talking about, another situation that was happening in the community. And I think they would be a tremendous ally to kind of bridge whatever disconnect that's going on with the businesses and the community. Now, as far as the task force, okay, so as you guys know, 2020 was a very unique year, a lot of restrictions and very limited things to do in the street, just in general. We was on lockdown. The whole nation was on lockdown, and which caused the spike because there were limited things to do. People were just outside, and there was just nothing. There was no other avenue to exercise yourself in. Has the task force taken into consideration those unique circumstances? That's one. Second, I've read the task force recommendation, and respectfully, I disagree because there seems to be a lot of policing in these, on these recommendations. As you guys know, last year was very big with Black Lives Matter. Uptown got very involved with that movement. And this is not a knock against police, because we need police. We appreciate police and the job that they do, but we know that over policing isn't always the answer. And has the task force taken into account, being that this is a predominantly Black Latino community, that maybe more policing might add to more problems than actually solving anything you guys are trying to solve?
Can I actually jump in to say something about that? One of the things that we did talk about in a meeting with Tanya from the task force, representatives of both precincts, Parks Enforcement and Parks, is that Parks Enforcement are unarmed peace officers. So one of the things that is a really helpful opportunity within the context of not criminalizing behaviors, while also making sure that laws and regulations are enforced, and that's done in a way that is respectful and really consistent with a lot of the goals of BLM and of reevaluating the way police do their job, is that having more Parks Enforcement is a very helpful way to do the kind of public education and outreach that Tanya is talking about these are the kinds of rules that people have to follow, in a way that doesn't also criminalize the behavior. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and then Tanya, the question was
first. I want to respond by saying that our task force includes a lot of people who are actually Dominican and Black, who are from the community. It actually includes small business owners in some of the hot spots, for example, on Dykeman. And so we are not some people who don't get it and don't understand the nuance and don't understand the challenges. Like, this task force is extremely diverse, and represents many people who do understand this issue. And that was extremely important for the task force, that we had that we had people who would be able to understand. And so that's one, like, misconception or, that's out there that I want to correct, that we are not, some people who, I don't know, just showed up. And, the average number of years of people who live in or work in the community is 22. So we have people who've been here for a very long time. People have been here for 50 something years, all of their lives. So, this is not some people who don't get it, is what I'm trying to say. Second, I want to say that I will disagree that the recommendations focus on policing. We don't mention arrest anywhere in any of our recommendations, because that's not anything that anybody is interested in doing. I don't think the police are interested in just running around arresting people. I don't think we're not. Again, as a extremely diverse task force who understand these issues, we're not interested in that. Most of these recommendations deal with better coordination and other types of ways of relating with each other and of approaching these problems that are actually hands off. So I don't see, there's nothing in here that's calling for arresting people. I don't see what integrating the use of sound and noise education module that was developed by the Department of Environment Protection in our schools has to do with policing. That's about education. Elected officials funding the launch of community training pilot program on low-cost sensors that can just be posted somewhere that can sort of study noise and give us a little bit more understanding of what the noise is coming from. Updating the noise code has nothing to do with that. It's about catching us up. It hasn't been updated since 2007. So it's about catching us up to what's going on right now in our community. The creating the first one, creating an easily accessible chart that outlines various agencies' responsibilities. I think a lot of the community members were confused. Who does what? Like Liz was talking about earlier, like who does what, who's in charge of what? People just don't know, and so they don't know who to go to. And so, clarifying that, asking for the fire department, for example, to their fireworks task force to start their targeting of suppliers, distributors, and of illegal fireworks earlier is not arresting anybody. At calling for an office of for quality of life is actually a means to bring people to the table and to be able to address these issues by us working together, is not arresting anybody or policing. And I don't think in the task force itself is a model for that, because we've spent the last 6 months plus meeting with all of the different agencies that and most of whom are not arresting people, and trying to get an understanding of what are some of the ways that they can enlist their strengths or their resources to help to address this problem. So I just wanted to push back on that, because it's just not true, and it's not anything that's said in here. And I don't want anything said about what we're doing that's a fallacy, because these recommendations do not talk about that at all. And that's not anywhere in here
May I respond?
at all. So just wanted to say that.
Charlie Bello, can I just say something in regards to that, if it's okay, at least from our perspective? So I created recently a 311 auto, and the majority of the complaints that I get when it comes to quality of life, the first question people ask me is, why are we not doing anything? And I guess by their anything, it refers to enforcement. Now, I see there seems to be some, I don't want to call it a divide or dichotomy when it comes to quality of life. There are those individuals that, obviously are bothered by it and complaining of it, that they want us to do more. But our more comes with enforcement, not necessarily arrest. Obviously, we're not going to arrest someone that's playing music or playing loud music, but it might lead to the confiscation of the boombox, the speaker, or a summons being issued. And then you have the other side of the community that they don't necessarily have a problem with it, because they're sort of accustomed to it or even participating in what's going on. So when I created my 311 auto, the enforcement aspect of it has increased, because my recommendation, or I guess my policy is, listen, we get a 311 complaint, somebody blasting loud music in front of a location, we go the first time around, we issue a warning. If the 311 call comes again and they're still there and they're blasting music, at some point we got to take enforcement. We can't just solely do education. I do get the text message the next day, people thanking me on the fact that we were able to solve the issue. Whether solving the issue is just warning an individual or group once, or whether solving the issue is issuing a summons, or whether solving an issue is confiscating the equipment or towing a vehicle, that's the way we go about it. But I guess the issue that I see in many of these meetings is that you have the portion of people that want to see the enforcement, and sometimes they'll ask me what enforcement we have done, and then you'll have the other individuals that don't want the enforcement part of it to be performed. I guess they want it to be educational, but at some point, to be honest with you, there's just so many times that you could warn someone before we need to do something, if that's what the community wants us to do. If they don't want us to do it, obviously we ignore it. But in terms of arrest, we're not going to make arrest for a noise complaint. But the way that we sort of fix things is just enforcing the laws and the rules and legislation that is already in place.
And this is a quality of life issue. This is a public health issue. Okay. We can talk all day about, what we don't want to have happen, but we as a community have to also be concerned about our grandmothers who can't get any sleep. Right. And about single fathers or fathers who are calling me and finding me on Facebook and saying, I have a newborn who cannot sleep, and my child could die because they cannot sleep. And I have to sleep because I have to take care of my family, and I can't sleep to get up to go to work. We have to think about the people who got burned out of their apartment on Nagle Avenue who could have died because of this nonsense.
Tanya, when I say
Okay, wait. We're not doing back and forth, Francisco, Tanya.
No, because I want to
Francisco
clarify.
and Tanya, we're not doing back and forth.
I just wanted to finish my statement about
But
it being
I haven't
public
responded to
safety.
anything yet. I haven't responded to anything. Tanya, I haven't
Okay.
responded to anything yet.
No, I know that.
This is a
and
public
I'm going
health
to
issue.
Tanya and Francisco, there are other hands up. It is 9 o'clock. We have another agenda item. I need you guys to let me run this meeting, and I'm going to go out of order and recognize Curtis next. He is the chair of the Public Safety Committee.
I had my hand up, Liz.
I know you had your hand up, which is why I just said I'm going to go out of order and recognize Curtis next.
Thank you very much.
And then
Liz.
you will be next after that.
Thank you. I just for the record, I have to leave, so I asked to be recognized because I have another engagement, and I just want to get my thoughts in and to be respectful of my committee members. So my apologies. It wasn't Liz's fault. It was me requesting to speak at this time. But I do want to just first of all acknowledge Tanya and to say thank you for the meetings you've been conducting. I did have a chance to attend the last meeting after being invited for many and not being able to attend. I attended the last one, and I was extremely impressed with the diversity of the task force members, and really her sharing the groups of people that have come to the task force to share their concerns. It's been people from all walks of life, business owners, people who are white, Black, Dominican, etc., and the list goes on. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I did notice from attending the last meeting that there was a issue of resources and the allocation of resources, and it seems to be the issue, one of the primary issues. And I don't want to ever call for more enforcement, because we know what enforcement and police encounter leads to, especially me being a man of color. I know that it oftentimes leads to a negative interaction. So I do feel like there's one piece that is perhaps a focal point, and that is finding a way to encourage in this next budget, as we are now in the final few months of the budget cycle for New York City. Perhaps the solution is to advocate for an increase in the Parks Department budget for more park enforcement officers. These are people who are, as Liz mentioned, are peace officers. They don't carry weapons. They don't have, the authority to arrest anyone. So I do feel like one of the solutions, and I was not able to do this in my last committee, but I do feel like perhaps, I can't speak for the entire Public Safety Committee, but I feel like perhaps the solution is to advocate for a resolution calling for the Parks Department to increase their parks enforcement officers in this next budget cycle. And I don't know how we can do that logistically, saying it could be a joint resolution, because I can't speak for my committee, but I do feel like that is something that could help solve the issue, hearing the concerns that the Parks Department had, as well as the NYPD had on our last task force call. So that's out there. Like I said, I don't want to call for more police officers, because I do feel that oftentimes leads to other issues. And we're living in a new world now with the BLM and defund NYPD movement. So the solution is not to increase the number of officers. However, that does remain a big issue in our precincts, being understaffed. And the fourth point is that, the noise is a big issue in the community, and we have to be cognizant of who we represent. And it's not just, ourselves individually, it's the entire community. So if there are people in our community who have concerns, we have to find a way to help them solve this issue. And it's not taking sides. It's not saying that, well, the people who are only complaining about noise are from this demographic or this side of Broadway. It really is to try to figure out a way to mitigate the issue and to figure out a way to solve the issue, and to lower and lessen the possibility of, Black and brown people being overly incarcerated or having increased encounters with the NYPD. And the last thing, I just want to acknowledge also that, fireworks is an issue. So I do respect the fact that the task force has also called for, a plan, a simple mitigation plan. And this is something that the Public Safety Committee also asks our precincts to share with us, the mitigation plan prior to the 4th of July. It's not just starting and discussing it after we hear the issue. It's like, how do we get our board and our committees to be proactive? We know this is going to be an issue. We know that. We all know that. So what do we do now to say, I want to see your mitigation plan. I want to see how you're disrupting the pipeline. The pipeline is not necessarily people in our community. It's people buying, fireworks from other municipalities. And even last year, to acknowledge Francisco's point, yes, I think part of the issue has been that people have been quarantined and confined and have gone completely out of control. But the fireworks also is just under the same umbrella. We know there's data out there that shows that the demand had increased because the price was lowered. The price of fireworks had decreased. It's an economics thing. It decreased because distributors saw that people were not buying fireworks in Pennsylvania and other locations because, so they lowered the price. But that caused an increase in sales and made it possible to buy a bulk of fireworks and come to New York City and sell them and make a huge profit. So it comes back down to an economic issue when it comes to the guns and fireworks, etc. And we have to find a way to demand a mitigation plan from the city as well. So I don't know if it's appropriate, but I would propose that the committee consider passing a resolution calling for an increase in the line item that connects to the parks enforcement officers. And whatever, I'm not sure how this works with making that a combined thing with public safety, but I can't speak for my committee, but I can't speak for my personal interest. And I do feel like that is most certainly something that should be considered, because it's not calling for law enforcement increases, it's calling for parks enforcement increases in their budget items.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rob.
Rather than responding to that, I mean, that's it. The mechanism for doing that is the budget ranking process. So while I 100% agree with you that that's a priority, you and I in our respective committees need to, do the work with our committee members to make sure that that floats to the top. And that's how and then advocate with that towards the board. I think that we don't, as a board, generally do resolutions around budget items. We have a budget process. So we actually had a pretty substantial conversation earlier apropos of lighting. So that's, I think, sort of you and Debbie, who's the chair of traffic and transportation, and I should maybe have an aggregated conversation around PEP enforcement, lighting, which have this integrated public safety concern. But with that, I do want to get back to our question queue. We've got Danielle, Sally, and then Francisco. And thank you, Curtis, for your substantial input in this overlapping area. Teamwork.
Yeah, thanks, Curtis, for joining. I have a few comments, mostly just going to piggyback off of what Curtis and Francisco have already said. I feel like they have said most of what I want to say. I think the first thing that I want to say is that Captain Bello, I really appreciate the approach that you outlined, sort of trying to respond initially by having a conversation and encouraging folks to maybe lower the volume or whatever the case may be. And then if there is a second complaint, then, maybe addressing it in a different way by issuing a summons or removing the piece of equipment. I think, as Curtis and Francisco said, it's really important to think about interactions and the way in which, law enforcement are engaging with people, especially given, what's been going on over the past year with BLM, as has already been mentioned. So I really appreciate that. And I guess in general, when it comes to noise, I think, Tanya, I appreciate your presentation and, I definitely agree. I'm a public health professional. And I agree that it's a public health issue or it can have implications, but I also think public health involves, thinking about over policing and mass incarceration and trying to keep people out of jails and minimize interactions with the police, because that can also have implications on for public health and on people's health. So, I'm definitely in support of making sure that we take steps to mitigate noise. But I think Francisco was trying to make the point of how people were sort of stuck inside during COVID, and parks are a gathering spot for people to be out in the open doors, at a distance potentially. And I guess I want to push back a little bit, because I feel like while noise is certainly an issue, I don't understand why near the Harlem River Drive, for example, or the Hudson River is so concerning when there aren't actually residences nearby. And I guess I'm having a hard time understanding. Lieutenant Tavares mentioned that, somebody started to put up a tent, and they went over and took away the tent before a noise complaint was even mentioned. And I think those are the kinds of things that I'm having a little bit of trouble wrapping my head around. So I don't necessarily need an answer, but I just kind of wanted to put my thoughts out there. So thank you.
Yeah, next we have Sally, and I just think it's important to keep in mind that we have thousands and thousands of residents in the Polo Grounds public housing, which is not part of Community Board 12, which might be why you are unaware of it. But there are significant repercussions for that area that Captain Bello described for the residents. The park itself is an area at the southern end of Community Board 12, but the thousands of residents who are negatively impacted by it are not in Community Board 12 because they're in the Polo Grounds. But yes, it's not so far away from residences. And there's also the noise reverberates all the way up on Edgecombe Avenue, where there are thousands of people who live. So it's not away from people.
I was referring to the FDR area where there aren't actually residences.
That is correct. I was referring to the FDR area. Sally.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. I guess I had a question about Captain Bello, your comments about the focus on Riverside Drive. Riverside Drive ends at 158th Street. So it's very little of our community. And I know, Liz, I heard your comments, but I don't understand why 34 is being deployed down to what's clearly out of their precinct and is only a sliver of yours, given the problems that we have in Highbridge and Inwood Hill Park and Fort Tryon, et cetera. Why there's not equal or even more attention to the parks that are fully in our precincts.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you got that. I never really mentioned Riverside Park or Riverside. Or you mean in terms of deployment?
Yes.
That deployment is from the borough. It's not from 3-3 precinct personnel.
Okay.
I just want to
make sure that we weren't losing our police to other community board districts.
No, so the scooter task force is assigned to the borough. They're not assigned to any particular precinct. They get their marching orders from the chief of Manhattan North. I guess the reason why they covering Riverside Drive, I know there was a specific individuals that was committing some vandalism, stretching all the way from the confines of the 2-0 all the way to the 3-4. So that's the reason why they're providing coverage. We sort of try to backfill Sunday and Monday when they're not working.
It seems like it's very easy for the city to order resources out of our community, and I object to that.
Mm-hmm.
My other quick question for Jennifer: will we be closing the peninsula at 10 o'clock this summer in Inwood Hill Park?
I think that's TBD.
Okay. I think that's helpful.
But I hear you, Sally, and I will absolutely raise it.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to flag one issue with closing the peninsula at 10 p.m. did mean that the party migrated out into the street. and had an even more significant impact on all the residents on 218th Street and Indian Road and the side streets.
Okay.
So there is that issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I know that people have lots of questions about all of this, and we could
Can I say
discuss
something?
this. We've already been going for, it's already 9:15, and we still have one more agenda item. And my goal was to end by 8:30, and we've missed that by 45 minutes. And we still have another presentation that was already bumped from last month. So I would very much like to wrap this, if I may.
I just wanted to emphasize, because I think it's really important. I think it's important that people understand, as much we're concerned about, yes, over policing. I am a Black woman. I am not, this is not lost on me. Additionally, I also have to be concerned with, during COVID, with people who were ill in our community, because we had some of the highest rates in Manhattan during that time. And we were having large gatherings that were only adding to that public health risk and that public health threat. And so, you know, I just implore people to really consider all of our community and all of the people who are impacted by this and their needs. They deserve to have their concerns heard as well, and to be able to sleep in. I would like to stop paying for hotels. So anyone who wants to contribute to my hotel fund to pay me back for that, I'd be happy to take that money. But because, you know, I have certain health conditions where I need to get proper sleep as well, and I matter. And so I just want us to just think about that, and that this is not a frivolous issue. This is something that's extremely serious and impacting our community in very real ways. I don't want to see someone die because of this problem. I don't want to see any more people die. Someone already did from the fireworks. So I don't want to see this happen. They matter too. And we should care about our elderly. We should care about our school kids who cannot study at night and who are falling behind. We should care about our veterans who serve this country, who their PTSD and other conditions are being exacerbated by M80s going off. We should be concerned about those people. And I would just implore us to think more deeply and more broadly, and to include those people as well. And again, the task force is concerned with all of our citizens, and that's why we have done the work that we've done to talk to all of these people and to understand and learn and understand what these issues are more deeply than we came in knowing. And I think that our recommendations reflect that knowledge and understanding in the broad nuance of this issue. Thank you, Liz. You've been wonderful. Your patience, I appreciate it. And I appreciate your leadership, and I will be quiet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I thank you, Tanya, for the incredible work that you have done and that all of your task force members have done. I thank Francisco for the thoughtful care that he has in advocating for the business community. Curtis for his stewardship of public safety issues. I love that we have cross-fertilization, that we've got Danielle, who is a member of this committee and the assistant chair of public safety, that we have Nobles, who is a member of this committee and a member of business development, that Francisco is a member of this committee and the chair of business development, that Sally is a member of this committee and a member of the Health and Environment Committee. So all of these things are interrelated. That Daryl is, you know, in his day job, He's our assistant chair, and in his day job, he works for the Commission on Human Rights and brings to us, some of the issues around how policing happens and how we make sure that it's done with equity and that people are represented with fairness. So, all of this stuff is really interrelated. We could talk all night. It's almost Shavuot. We could have an overnight study. But in the interest of time, I want to wrap this up. I know that it's been a really long meeting. We've got these poor guys who have waited incredibly patiently. You had no idea what you were up for when you hopped onto this call. On the one hand, I'm sorry that it's taken so long. On the other hand, I'm not sorry for even a minute of it, because it's been incredibly interesting. To me, it's enlightening, and I already know a lot about this stuff. So I like to think that other people have found these series of conversations on a variety of issues to be engaging and interesting and worth the considerable amount of time that we have invested in them. So our last agenda item, I just want to turn it over to Miguel Plaza, who has some thoughts on pop-up festival holiday programming in parks. And while, I think it's actually kind of good that you've been able to, like a tea, infuse yourself in this context of the many cultural needs and health and safety and peace and quiet needs. So talk to us about your ideas and your thoughts and how we can help and work together on this.
Hi, Liz. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I have also, thank you for having me, first of all. I have Frank McCoy, who's the founder and creator of We Love Pop-Ups over there in Chicago, the West Coast. Is there a way that we could add him as a panelist? He'll be speaking with me as well.
Frank McCoy, yeah, you know what? I can just allow him to talk.
Okay, cool. Okay, that works.
Hello, everyone.
Great.
So
Can
we're
you guys
here.
hear
Hey, Frank, how you doing?
Good. Thank
Well, thank you for having us. Pretty much, Jack's Pumpkin Pop-Up is an installation that is like a festival installation for, groups of family and those. I'm sorry, hold on. Can you guys hear me? I hear an echo.
Yeah, no, we can hear you.
I can hear.
Okay, perfect.
Miguel, are you presenting anything? You need to be able to share?
Yes, if you guys would allow me to share my screen, I would love to show you a trailer of pretty much what goes down in Chicago. And I'm looking to become the bridge to bringing this experience over to New York City, precisely our community, Washington Heights and Inwood.
Okay, you can share your screen now.
Awesome. Give me 1 second. Make sure. Okay, here we go. All right, perfect. All right, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna give you this short little trailer, and then we could speak further on the project.
Can you put the volume up, Miguel?
Sure. You didn't hear it?
No.
I think we get the idea.
Yeah,
though.
it's
I
just
mean, I think
festive.
the
It's just
visuals,
festive
we get the
music. Yeah,
idea.
It's festive music. And pretty much, let me stop sharing. All right, got it. Pretty much, I have Frank here, and he's the founder, like I mentioned, and he'll be able to talk a little bit more about the project.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Liz. So Jack's Pumpkin Pop-Up provides groups of families, friends with a rural suburban experience right in the center of the city. We bring thousands of pumpkins and decorations We put food stands, and it's never any possibilities that everyone can enjoy. We're bringing the farm to the inner city. Some of the additional experiences we can provide to guests are large corn maze, as you saw in that trailer, with hidden surprises, axe throwing, gypsy caravans, theme-filled music, Halloween, more family-oriented, festive. And then the best of all, as you guys know, there is photo opportunities, photo ops popping up around the country where people are calling it Instagrammable moments. And a lot of young people, a lot of families love going to take pictures in front of these. You can go out to the farms and spend a whole week taking pictures in front of like I was saying, the gypsy wagons and finding them, or we can bring them all to you to the center of the city.
I'm sorry, did you say gypsy wagons?
Yeah, it's gypsy caravans, gypsy wagons. It's just fun. Halloween themed, Oktoberfest themed, a huge corn maze. We actually build a corn maze where you can, go through the corn maze. Pre-COVID, you'd be able to get lost. During COVID last year, it was one way in, one way out. But we do a lot of photo opportunities even inside the corn maze where you can take pictures.
So I'm just, don't mean to monopolize
No,
things. So,
it's fine.
there are two things that come to mind. One is, this is essentially private use of public space. And while there's a lot to be said for these kinds of activities, which are a blast. I mean, who doesn't like a good corn maze? They're fantastic. Pumpkin picking, it's great. Apple bobbing, all this stuff is very fun. And making it available in the city is wonderful. We have a nonprofit organization, not even a nonprofit organization, a loose coalition of moms and dads who put together an amazing festival in Fort Tryon Park, which is free, and everything is free. The pumpkin painting is free, the cupcake decorating is free, all the games are free, everything is free. I'm gonna guess that this particular activity is not only not free, it's probably not inexpensive. So trying to figure out how to balance the use of public space and the taking away of public space from the public so that there is a publicly accessible event, but that has a fairly high barrier of entry in terms of cost is potentially, that's something you would have to work out with the Parks Department. But I do also want to just highlight for you that if you should wind up, if there is agreement that this is a good thing to do and that this is what the community wants and a reasonable permitting thing can be found and payment structure can be found, I would urge you to not include gypsy wagons in the offering. I would beg you to remove gypsy wagons from the offerings that you have nationwide. I'm not going to use equivalent terms for other ethnic groups that we don't usually use in polite conversation. But I would encourage you to remove gypsy from your lexicon. They are Roma, and there's nothing funny or appropriate about spangly, bangly, fortune telling. Yeah, don't get me started.
Okay.
Okay,
Not-
no problem.
Not a laughing matter. Not a laughing matter. But I see we've got questions from Sally and from Daryl, and I saw also that Jennifer had her physical hand up, not her little blue hand raised. So Sally, Daryl, and then Jen.
Yes, I guess my question is just following up on Liz's. I can't imagine having a event like this in a park that you would charge people to go to. Any cost to me is a barrier to entry. our park, you know, the events that are held in Woodhill Park are all free, all open to the public. I've never been to an event or recommended an event where there's an entry fee. And I just can't even imagine that happening. So that's just a comment.
We understand. And this is why we're here. We're here, you know, for recommendations, to talk to you guys, to get feedback, get some resources.
Right.
To
I mean,
see,
perhaps applying for grants to cover your costs is a better way to go about it, but not charging fees to a community that's already economically challenged.
Okay.
Well, one of the things, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So one of the things that we would do is we would give tickets, free admission to a lot of the schools inside New York City. So we would actually do free events for kids, and we would work with schools to bus them in, and we would provide an event for them to go inside the corn maze, to do the carnival games, because we also have carnival games. And then we'd provide pizza for them. So it would be almost like a trade-off, right? So during the day, it's free for kids. In the evening, there would be some kind of cost. But however, we would still donate a bunch of tickets to any committees that would want to give away tickets. Now, these would be timed entry, so they would have to redeem their tickets online. So that they can go. Obviously, there's capacity issues depending on the park. So we would welcome schools to be able to visit and bring their kids.
Okay. Next, we've got Daryl, but before Daryl, I just want to draw your attention, Frank and Miguel. I'm not sure if you could see, Jennifer just put up a comment in the chat about how to hold a large scale event and what the permitting and fee structure process would be and what the website is. So if you can see that, you might want to just check out that information. Daryl?
Yeah, a couple things. One, and I'm sorry if I missed this at the beginning, but what park is this you're thinking of, and when is this going to be? And also, Liz, just to clarify, I think the objection, understandably, is for the word gypsy, not the actual wagons.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with wagon rides.
We like
Just
wagons.
don't
Kids
call
like
them that.
wagons. Yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a problem. We could rename it to. It's not a problem.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's not making fun of anybody. It's just making a theme. It's a theme, right? It's October. It's Oktoberfest. It's anything that has to do with enjoying. It's a family event. It's pumpkins. It's not scary. It's not a haunted house. It's not a haunted outdoors. It's meant to be to bring the family together where they don't have to pay exorbitant prices to go an hour outside the city, especially if they don't have a car. They get to still enjoy the farm inside the city. And it does bring a lot of families together, a lot of young adults that otherwise wouldn't be going out to farms. As you know, going out to farms is expensive, not only the ride, but paying everything at the farm outside of the city.
Sorry, where and when and how long is this for?
So this would go anywhere between 3 and 4 weeks, and it's October theme, so it would be October Halloweenish theme with pumpkins. So it would be as many weeks as we would be allowed, up to 4 weeks.
And in regards to where, Daryl, we're asking for recommendation. We want to be mindful, you know, to the community, to the quality of life, and also the noise, since I sat in and heard a lot of the concerns that, you know, come with, you know, these type of events.
So I want to recognize Nobles, and then I actually have a suggestion.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, Miguel, hey, Frank. Thanks for
Hey,
coming to
Noble.
Parks as we discussed during business development. I really appreciate it. And I will reiterate, as I said during business development, we have a lot of private open space in Upper Manhattan right now. So it might be, I mean, if you can't get a grant, as Sally had mentioned before, you know, even with the schools, you know, having gratis tickets, if you will, even adults with things that usually go on in parks it's unpaid. Like there's no tickets for parks. I brought up to you guys the medieval festival that we have in Fort Tryon in business development and how that goes, and how there's a blueprint there on how to do certain events in our parks. So if the grant is not possible and financially it's not feasible to have a free event for all, I would still highly suggest maybe going down in a conversation with the bid or some other business related organization to find an open lot to be able to pull this off. And as Francisco, I think, said before, there's a bunch of 2 to 3 acre lots in Upper Manhattan that could be used. So just wanted to suggest that.
Yeah, so one of the things, what I wanted to suggest, and a couple of these ideas are going to sound a little crazy, but just bear with me. So on Broadway, I mean, there's a lot that I really love about this, but I'm just haven't, as you heard from the previous conversation, you know, this is a largely not wealthy community of people who do not have apartments large enough for their families and who do not have summer homes, you know, vacation homes in the Hamptons and in the Catskills. So the parks are our living room. The parks are our backyard and our front yard and our playgrounds, quite literally. So taking any of that property which away from the public, even though this would be very fun in many ways, and even though much of it would be comped for people who cannot afford it, I'm having a hard time getting past shutting down the Dyckman ball fields in October for this. So a couple of possibilities. There is a vacant lot on Broadway across from PSIS 176. It's between Academy Street and 204th Street. I have no idea who's the person who owns it, but a person owns it and it's been empty for years. I don't know what you would be paying, but it seems to me that for a festival for a thing like this, it's private land. So you would be much less inhibited in what you would have to go through to do things. You would basically have to work it out with the person who owns the property. And it's a fairly large footprint. It's big enough for, you know, a very decent apartment building. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is there's a construction site at the northwest corner of 207th Street and 10th Avenue. Construction was halted. I have no idea what that site looks like because it's got a fence with like tarps up, so you can't really see into it. But I don't know if they ever actually really broke ground. So maybe it's, and that's a huge lot. It's several acres. So it might be, and again, I don't know who owns it, but you can go into the city records. I mean, there's actually a big thing with who's the developer of that property. That development halted, what was put on hold when the Inwood rezoning got challenged in court, and then the economy went ass over tea kettle. So I don't know what that ground physically looks like and if they've broken ground, but who knows? Maybe that's a possibility. It used to be this ginormous parking lot. Another possibility is the parking lot on the southwest corner of that intersection. It's a supermarket. Now the supermarket may well want to maintain its parking lot, but again, it's private property. So if you go to them and say, hey, we'd like to do this, I don't know, maybe they would be open to renting you their parking lot for 2 weeks while you set up this thing. Do other people, show of hands, have other thoughts on private parcels of land that might be appropriate for this use? Because I mean, this could be dope actually, if they can identify a piece of property that they just rent from the person who owns it without taking public space. which I think would wind up being unpopular.
I agree.
Also,
And likely cost prohibitive.
yeah,
The Parks Department doesn't ever, in my 20 years with the Parks Department, allow somebody, you said 4 weeks, taking away the public's land, for 4 weeks.
oh, another possibility, I'm just spitballing here. This could be
Thank you, Liz.
crazy, but I have no idea what collegiate sports is looking like, but Columbia University might
one.
be good with saying, hey, I don't know if they're playing in-person football.
Good one, Liz. That could
They
work.
might be fine with you using that track. There's the large parking lot that Columbia University has right across the street from the Allen Pavilion, but they're using that for a parking lot, so that's probably a no-go. And
The track is public access during certain hours, so you would be depriving the public of the use of that community benefit.
yes, the track does have public access. However, it's privately owned, and I suspect that the trade
Yeah,
of losing
exactly.
the public access, because right now the public access is only a couple hours a day, the trade of losing that public access in exchange for freebie tickets for this totally dope thing, that might be a wash. I mean, I don't, that's not my decision, but again, it's private property. So the other possibility is there's a garage. It's called A1 All German. They are selling their property to, I believe, construct a school. That's a little bit down the road, but they have a fairly substantial parking lot. I have no idea if they're transitioning out their business. I don't know what their plans are for when they're closing their business. I don't know if they're vacant, but that's maybe a possibility. Do other people know of other large parcels of land that might be appropriate for this usage in Washington Heights or Inwood?
We are looking for at least 2 acres. So any suggestions on, I think Liz, you're right on the money there, finding private land like that. And it would be amazing if we can find at least 2 acres.
I'm just wondering if you want to, like connect with the city's Economic Development Corporation, since they already did outreach to all those property owners, related to the Inwood rezoning.
Yeah.
They might be a good point of contact.
Is there an email that you could provide that we could contact directly?
Charlie Samboy left, didn't he?
I believe so. Yeah. So Ebenezer, are you still on the call? Can you, not necessarily now, since I know you may not have access to all of your work files, can you just identify who would be the right contact at EDC and email that information to Miguel and to Frank? And if you could go ahead and copy me and Francisco, that would be fantastic. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for that suggestion. See, that's why they pay you the big bucks. Come up with good ideas like that. Okay, other thoughts?
Well, guys, this was great. Thank you for the feedback, and hopefully, we're able to, make some contact with some of these lands and bring this into the community. I really think it's going to be amazing. I personally have seen how great it looks, in other cities, and to see something like this to this magnitude in our community, especially during the times that we've all, been going through, I think it's very uplifting. It will bring the spirits up.
It wouldn't be in this, well, I was you know what, I was thinking about those Van Gogh immersive experiences, but of course those aren't happening in this community. But yeah, the other possibility, I suppose, would be the Armory. But that's a whole other,
I'll just say, wouldn't go there.
yeah. The Armory, that would be.
Don't take
that's
it to
a
that
whole
committee.
other- Yeah. You know what? Forget I mentioned that. Bad idea.
Yeah, because Lower Manhattan's full of nothing but empty.
Tanya, where's that intersection where St. Nicholas Avenue and Amsterdam Avenue come together in like a weirdly shaped triangle?
And there's an empty lot.
And there's a big ass empty lot.
Absolutely.
It's just across from where the C train is. So I want to say it's like between 164th and 163rd. And at the 163rd end, it's a point. But at the 164th end, it's a block. So it's this weird triangle wedge. And it would be actually kind of perfect because it's very accessible. It's between it's right by the C train and not far from the 168th Street 1 train. And again, it's
near the library. It's near the library too.
It's near the library.
The public library is right there.
Mhm.
They can probably be a partner with you in getting word out and promoting that to families and things like that.
It's right across the street from a drug set too, just an FYI.
Oh.
It's right across the street from a what?
A drug set, a narcotic set.
Oh.
I don't think it's close to 2 acres. But
Well, you know what? My guess is if you brought in hundreds of people a night, that would probably blow up their spot.
Captain
So
Teller
they
would be there
probably
personally.
Wind up relocating. Another good reason to do this.
Well, what's next on the agenda?
I think we've mined this pretty deep.
Yeah.
That is it. At this point, even if we have new business, I'm not willing to entertain it because we're almost 3.5 hours in. But this has been incredibly productive. I am grateful to all of you for all of your input and for sticking with this. Somebody threw out Ned Klein threw into the chat the block and lot information for that funny little triangular wedge. Ebenezer, when I get the file for this and the link to this, am I also going to get the chat as well as the Q&A?
Yes, I will do that. Yes, I'll do my best.
Fantastic. So when I get this tomorrow, I will pull through that and email that to you, Miguel.
That sounds amazing.
So that you have it.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your inputs.
Thank you all.
It's a pleasure meeting you all, and hopefully we'll see each other again.
Fantastic.
Take care,
Everybody on the committee, you've done great work. I'm gonna double everybody's salary. So you're gonna go from 0 to 0. And with that, I will happily take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Yeah, there he is.
Fantastic.
Every time.
All right.
Good night,
9:50. Thank you
Good
all
night,
so
folks.
much.
Love you all. See ya.
Be well.
You too.